Isang mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat at magandang magandang umaga sa ating lahat. At narito na naman tayo sa huling araw ng ating ikapitong pangdaigdigang webinar workshop. Ah, Huling araw na natin ito kaya nakaka-excite lang dahil alam ko na naging siksik at liglig at umaapaw ang ating nakaraang 3 araw. At hindi ko na ito patatagalin dahil bubuksan na natin sa tamang oras, sa takdang oras ang ating seminar workshop, ang ating session sa araw na ito. At samahan ninyo ako para sa pambansang awit ng Pilipinas na susundan ng panalangin.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, telas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manluluping, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinatang tula, awit sa pagkayang minamahal.
a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. Things in the past, things yet unseen, wishes and dreams that are yet to come true. All of my heart and all of my praise, my heart and my hands are lifted to you. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory. Lord, I offer my days to you, placing my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. What can we give that you have not given? What do we have that is not already yours? All we possess that is not worth living, and that's what we give to you, Lord. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your glory. Lord, I offer my days to you, lifting my praise to you as a pleasing sacrifice. Lord, I offer you my life. Lord, I offer you.
At formal na po natin at opisyal na binubuksan ang huli at ikaapat na araw ng ating pandaigdigang seminar workshop. Hayaan niyo munang batiin ko ang lahat ng narito na sa araw na ito sa ating Zoom. Medyo marami-rami na rin tayo. At inaasahan natin na mas marami pang lalahok at dadalo maya-maya. At siguro hindi ko na patatagalin ang aking pagsasalita dahil kagaya ninyo, ako rin ay interesado at excited na makilala ang ating susunod na kalahok. Pero bago yan, lahat po ng link para sa ating attendance ay ilalagay po sa chat box. Okay? So hindi ko na po patatagalin dahil excited na rin ako na makilala ang ating susunod na tagapagsalita na pakinggan natin at panoorin kung sino nga ba ito at kilalanin pa sa video presentation na inihanda ni Binibining CJ San Pascual.
Sino nga ba siya? Ang ating tagapanayam ay nagtapos ng Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy sa St. Louis University. Nagtapos ng Master of Arts in Education at Doctor of Education sa University of Nueva Cáceres. Siya ay kasapi ng Philippine Association for Teacher Education sa ika-5 rehiyon. At isang fellow sa Philippine Educational Measurement and Evaluation Association. Ang ating tagapanayam ay ilang ulit nang nakapagsagawa ng seminar tulad ng Enhancing Teachers' Aptitude in Assessing Academic Performance, Refresher on Test Construction, Item Analysis and Test Banking, The Power of Performance-Based Assessment, Student Portfolio as an Assessment Tool in Flexible Learning, Module Writing, Webinar sa Portfolio Assessment, at test construction. Siya ay nagkamit ng mga parangal tulad ng Philippine Association for Teacher Education Parangal Award. At naging outstanding individual stakeholder in responding COVID-19 pandemic. Ang ating tagapanayam ay ang founding dean ng College of Education sa Ateneo de Naga University. Siya ay kasalukuyang nagtuturo sa paaralang graduado ng Ateneo de Naga University at direktor sa Ateneo Teacher Training Center. Ang ating tagapanayam, Dr. Arnulfo R. Rigene.
Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Good morning. Share muna ako ng ano ko ha. Deck slides. Okay. Kita na po ba yung deck slide? Kita na?
Opo, kita na po.
Okay. So again, good morning to everyone and thank you for inviting me to be part of your international webinar workshop on the occasion of Buwan ng Wika. Bago ang lahat, gusto kong banggitin dito ang mga pinanggalingan ng aking deck slides. No? So these are the references with gratitude. So karamihan ng aking deck slides ay hango sa deck slides ni Dr. Marilyn Balagtas ng Philippine Normal University. So tatlo, ano? Tapos kay Dr. Gonzales din, ginamit ko din yung deck slides niya. Tapos yung aking aklat tungkol sa assessment. Tapos ginamit ko rin yung aklat ni Macmillan, yung paborito kong akda tungkol sa classroom assessment. Si Popam din. Tapos si Reedman. Pagkatapos kay Popam uli, ginamit ko kay Stevens saka kay Carlo Magno. So ito yung mga references na ginamit ko dito sa aking deck slide presentation. So umpisahan na natin sapagkat mahabang ating talakayan, trimodal assessment. Now, lagi kong pinag-uumpisahan ang aking talakayan kaysa sa ganito, ano? What gets assessed is what gets learned. Ano gusto sabihin nito? What gets assessed is what gets learned. Now, whatever we include in our assessment are those that students learn. And those are not included in our assessment are those that are easily forgotten and unlearned by our students. And so, my dearly beloved teachers, if we believe that this learning competency is very important for our students to learn, then it should be part of our assessment. We have a definition of what is classroom assessment. Ito ay galing sa akda na si Macmillan. Si Macmillan ay nagsabi na ang assessment ay may tatlong pamamaraan: collection, interpretation, at use ng information for us teachers to make better decision. So we collect, and then after we collect, we interpret, and after we interpret these assessment results, we use this information for us to make better decision. Now, these key assessment results are used. One is to adjust instructional plan. Number two is to diagnose learning difficulties. And number three is for grading. Another definition kay Macmillan, classroom assessment embodies that student evaluation is an integral part of teaching. However, it is recognized, it is admitted by Macmillan that evaluation or assessment should not be something merely done after instruction. So our assessment today should look like instruction and instruction look like assessment. Unlike in the pen and paper, kadalasan sa pen and paper, magtuturo muna tayo. Pagkatapos ng pagtuturo natin, magbibigay tayo ng pagtataya. Ngayon, kung maaari, pagtuturo natin at the same time, nag-a-assess tayo. Lalong-lalo na sa mga formative assessment, dapat yung mga formative assessment natin would look like our teaching strategy. Now, we have another definition by Popam. Popam defines assessment as a set of procedures designed to provide information about student development, growth, and achievement. And we should always compare this growth and development or simply learning to the standard. So dapat lagi natin paghahambingin ang achievement ng mga bata doon sa tinatawag nating standards. Kaya nga doon sa formative assessment, kailangan na talakayin natin sa mga mag-aaral, this is your achievement, this is your performance, and this is the desired goal. At yung desired goal na yun, ang tinatawag nating standards. Now, sa K-12, di ba meron tayong content standards at meron tayong performance standards. So, dapat yun ang ating basihan sa paghahambing ng kanilang natutunan sa ating aralin. Now, sa Department of Education, ito naman ang kanilang definition ng K-assessment. It is an ongoing process of identifying, gathering, and organizing both quantitative and qualitative information, what our students know. But if you notice, I inserted the term, the word understand, because in the definition of DepEd, sa kanilang is what the students know and what the students can do. Mahirap na hindi naiintindihan ng bata ang nalalaman. Dapat maintindihan ng mga bata kung ano ang nalaman nila para makagawa sila ng maigi. Now, pagpatuloy natin ang talakayan, ang assessment is more than testing and more than measurement. So ang testing, ang assessment dapat ay hindi lang papasa o babagsak ang mga bata. It's not a matter of life and death. Hindi pwede ng assessment. There are only two possible consequences. It's either you pass or you fail. That is why in 2008, sinabi ko na ang assessment ay assessment. Okay? So what do we do in assessment? We assist our students to learn better so that when assessment comes, the performance is much better. So dapat ganun ang ating ginagawa. Sapagkat ang etymology ng salitang assessment ay nanggaling sa Latin, sa Latinong salitang asidere. Ang gusto sabihin ng asidere is a teacher sits beside our student or his or her student to give feedback and encouragement. Yun ang gusto sabihin ng assessment sa Latinong salita. Okay. Now, may tatlong modes of classroom assessment. Ang una ang tinatawag nating written. Ang written ay may isa lamang tamang sagot. Pangalawa ay performance-based assessment. Ang jargon nito sa Department of Education ay performance task. At ang pangatlo ay portfolio assessment. Now, ang performance-based assessment sa portfolio assessment, they belong to alternative assessment. If we look at DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015, the grading system is written tests, and then we have performance tasks, and we have quarterly assessment. And quarterly assessment is either written test or performance task or both. So yun ang ating grading system sa DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. Now, sinabi ko kanina, ang written test only elicits one correct answer. Ang performance-based assessment elicits many possible answer. Maraming kasagutan. At dito sa performance task or performance-based assessment, the correctness of the answer is not the only criterion. So our students need to explain, to discuss, and justify. Ang pangatlo, ang portfolio assessment. At hindi masyado to nagagamit ng mga teachers sa loob ng klase, yung portfolio assessment. Kadalasan, ang binibigay natin ay yung dalawa, written at performance task. Minsan lang natin ginagamit ang portfolio assessment. Kung nagpo-portfolio assessment tayo sa loob ng klase, hindi talaga tunay na portfolio assessment sapagkat may pamamaraan, may prosesong sinusunod sa portfolio assessment na tatalakayin ko kay mamaya. Now, magbibigay ako ng sitwasyon at babanggitin natin kung ito ay written at performance. Sapagkat kapag nagbibigay ako ng webinar tungkol dito sa 3 modes of classroom assessment, binabanggit ko to. Now, halimbawa ako isang guro sa elementarya grade 1. Pagpasok ko sa loob ng aralan, sa loob ng silid-aralan, may dala-dala akong napakalaking bag at sa loob ng malaking bag, napakaraming gamit. So ang ginawa ko, nilabas ko yung mga gamit sa loob ng bag at sinabi ko sa mga bata, sa aking mga mag-aaral, maaari doon muna kayo sa likod ng silid-aralan. Tapos isa-isa sa inyo sa grupo, kukuha ng mga bagay dito sa harapan At babanggitin nyo to kung ito ay living thing or non-living thing. Now, ang tanong, ito ba ay written test o ito ba ay performance tasks? Ano ba ang kasagutan natin? Ito ba ay written test or ito ba performance task or performance-based assessment? Okay? Gusto nyo bang sagutin? Oo. Would you like to try? What is the correct answer? Ano kaya ang sagot natin? Ano kaya ang ating sagot? Written test po ba yun or performance tasks? Would you like to try to answer? Sino po ba makapagsasagot? Okay, performance. Okay. Ang sabi ni Ma'am Annabel kay Palmiano, ito ay performance task. Okay, sino pa po ang may sagot? So I come to my class, I have my bag, and in my bag there are a lot of things. And so I bring out all these things and I put them on top of the table. And I ask my class, could you please divide yourself into 3? And each member of the group will come in front and will get one object and identify if this is living or non-living thing. So performance din po ang sagot ni Ma'am. Okay, oral quiz, no? Okay, Ma'am, ang sagot lang natin po ay performance or written, no? So yun lang po ang pagpipilian natin. Okay? Performance po ba to or written? So okay, PETA po, no? Performance task ang sagot ni Ma'am, no? Okay? So Doc Basil, pagpasensyahan po kung okay, performance po. So, kadalasan, karamihan, ang ating kasagutan ay performance po. Now, okay, gusto niyo pong malaman ko anong tamang sagot? Okay. So, ang tamang sagot po ay written test lamang sapagkat may iisa lamang kasagutan. Yung activity po natin, ang tinatawag natin po doon, assessment strategy. Ano? Pero, kung titingnan natin ang tanong, ito ba ay living or non-living thing? Iisa lamang ang kasagutan. So, nalilito tayo dito kung ito ay written or performance. Dapat maliwanag sa atin kung ito ay may isa lamang kasagutan, written po yun. Pero kapag maraming maaaring kasagutan, yun po ay performance. Now, nalilito tayo sapagkat may activity. Yung activity natin, tinatawag natin doon assessment strategy. Okay, maliwanag po ba? Now, aking pagpatuloy ang aking talakayan, meron tayo ditong maiksi lamang ng pagsusubok, pagsusuri tungkol sa 3 pamamaraan sa pagtataya at pagsusuri ng mga natutunan ng ating mga mag-aaral. So, meron ang 3, banggitin natin, written test, performance tasks, at portfolio assessment. Now, ang una, state the domain and range of a given function. So, ano po dito ang tamang sagot sa number 1? Okay? Okay, so, Ivy, welcome, ano? So, ang tamang sagot sa unang katanungan, so ang una po ay written rin pa rin. State the domain and range of a given function. Written po yun. Simplify complex fraction. So ano po dito ang sagot natin sa pangalawa? Simplify complex fractions. Okay, ang sagot natin po dito sa pangalawa ay written, performance po, no? Performance po. Yung una ay written, ang pangalawa po ay performance na. Pangatlo, multiply and divide algebraic expression. Multiply and divide algebraic expression. Okay, written po ba to or performance? Okay, so sabi ni Sir Albert, performance. Sabi ni Ma'am Catherine, written. Performance ka Ma'am kay Annabel, tapos kay Ivy, written din. Written kay Sir Merlito, kay Glenda, Ma'am Glenda, performance. So ang tamang sagot po dito sa pangatlo ay written. No? Written po dito, may isang kasagutan lamang dito. Now, ang pang-apat, classify the properties of substances as to chemical or physical and intrinsic or extrinsic. So, ang sagot natin sa pang-apat po ay, written. Tama po, no? Written po ang tamang sagot sa pang-apat. At ang pang-5, create an informatics to educate the first-time voters in the 2022 election. Ito ay performance task. Okay, so sana naliwanagan tayo kung ano ang written saka ang performance. Okay, lagi natin iisipin, ang written test merong iisang kasagutan. Okay? Ang performance, maraming kasagutan at ang tamang sagot ay hindi lang criterion. Kaya kailangan ng mga mag-aaral ay ipaliwanag, i-discuss at i-justify ang tamang sagot. Now, tama po ba ako na sa objective test natin, yung written test natin, multiple choice, true or false, kung ang tamang sagot ay titik A, hindi natin tinatanong ang mga bata ipaliwanag bakit ang titik A ang tamang sagot. Wala nang kapaliwanagan po. If sa performance test, hindi. Magpapaliwanag ang bata. No? Okay, now, ang portfolio assessment, ito ay collection ng mga iba't ibang performance tasks. Pero ang pagkakaiba po ng portfolio assessment, meron ditong reflection. Because sinabi nga, the heart of portfolio assessment is reflection. And when we allow our students to reflect on their performance tasks, okay, that reflection deepens their understanding and extends their learning. Now, sa performance task, usually wala naman pong reflection. Pero dito sa portfolio lagi, at dapat meron tayong prosesong ino-observe dito sa portfolio assessment. Sige, aking pagpatuloy na po. So, what is a test? Now, a test is a tool for cognitive traits that would be gauged using an objective format or method. So, ang ating pong assessment tool sa cognitive domain of learning, tatawag natin written test po yun. Okay, ang ating assessment tool, if you want to assess skills, or product, or process, rubrics po ang ginagamit natin. So ngayon, ang pinagtatalakay po natin, written test, at ang written test is very appropriate for us to measure cognitive domains of learning. Now, the results of a test will depend on the length, yung haba ng ating pagsusubok, saka yung level of difficulty ng ating mga katanungan. Now, bakit kailangan nating magbigay ng objective format yung written test? May tatlong kadahilanan kung bakit magbibigay tayo ng objective format po. Yung una, students answer at the same time using the same format. At ang pangalawa, easy for us to grade, easy for certification, or certifying the level of performance of our student, and easy for ranking of students. Ang kagandahan dito sa objective format, scores are readily available. Yun po ang kagandahan dito. Now, ang problema kasi, kapag hindi maayos yung pagkakasulat ng ating pagsusubok, yung ating mga test items, yun may problema po doon. Now, if tests are not properly constructed, they may, one, fail to capture what the examinees really know, understand, and can do. Another one, provide data that are invalid for judgment or used in decision-making. And lastly, do harm to examinees' self-concept, self-esteem, and future career. And so, very important po na dapat pagplanuhan natin ang ating mga pagsusubok na inibigay natin sa mga mag-aaral. So, ito po yung mga principles na dapat nating alalahanin sa pagsulat ng mga katanungan sa pagsusubok. Yung unang tatawag nating validity. Yung validity, ang tanong dito ay ano ang purpose ng ating pagsusubok, ng ating pagtataya. Kaya dito, pag-isipan natin yung policy natin, wrong spelling, wrong answer. Kasi kung ang pagsusubok, pagtataya ay hindi naman spelling quiz po yun, bakit mali ang tamang sagot? No? Kadalasan sa Pilipinas, yun ang ating mga polisiya sa loob ng klase. Wrong spelling, wrong answer. Tama po ba? Tama po ba? Oo. Now, ang ano kasi doon, ang question doon kasi is, if that is a spelling quiz, that is valid. No? Tama yung ginagawa natin. But if it is not a spelling quiz, then the spelling should not affect the scoring. Kasi hindi naman to spelling quiz o sa ating mga Filipino teacher. Kung ang ating quiz, kung ating pagsusubok ay para sa pag-unawa ng maikling kwento, comprehension, now kahit mali-mali yung grammar should not affect the score sapagkat ito ay comprehension quiz at ito ay hindi grammar quiz. So yun ang katanungan dito sa validity. Yung pangalawa, reliability. So ito ay consistency ng results. Now, consistent results across time and forms regardless of the checkers. Kung minsan, Kapag nag-check tayo ng mga papel ng mga estudyante, okay, isang klase, sasabihin natin, ang tamang sagot sa unang katanungan ay titik A, subalit pagdating natin sa pangalawang seksyon, bakit nagbago? Yung number 1 naging letter B na. So walang consistency. So kahit sino ang mag-check ng papel, dapat kung ano ang tamang sagot, yun ang tamang sagot. Hindi pwedeng magbabago, okay? Because of time, because of forms, and because of one who checks. Ang pangatlo po ay being fair. So we have to be fair. Pag sinabing fairness po, we have to make our exam known to our students. Kaya we inform them of the coverage of the examination. So the test should be known, the test should be made public to our examinees. Now, hindi lang sapat na banggitin natin kung ano ang naisama natin sa pagsusubok, dapat din banggitin natin sa mga mag-aaral kung ano ang hindi kasama sa ating pagsusubok. So what I mean is that yung fairness is not only enough that we tell our students of what is included, but also we have to tell our students of what is not included in our tests. So yun po ang tinatawag nating fairness. Ang pang-apat, utility, the test should be used to improve learning and teaching and to aid decision-making. Meron tayong practicality, dapat easy for us to administer and easy for us to score. Kaya ngayong performance task, mahirap i-administer yung performance task. Mahirap din i-score yung mga performance task. Kaya when we ask our student to submit products, ang hirap i-score. Pero kapag written test, sinabi ko nga kanina, the scores are readily available. So, ito yung tatawag natin practicality. Tapos po, meron tayong tatawag na authenticity. Dapat yung mga katanungan natin, yung authenticity ay hindi lamang sa performance task. Now, kahit po din sa written test, sana yung mga halimbawa natin ay mga totoong buhay ng ating mga mag-aaral. Halimbawa, instead na sasabihin natin, may 3 ibong lumilipad at may 2 ibon nakadapo sa poste, ilang ibon lahat ang nakita natin. So maaari ba na ang ating katanungan ay tungkol sa mga buhay-buhay ng ating mga mag-aaral? Halimbawa, kahapon bumili ako ng sabong panglabas sa halaga ng 15 pesos, subalit a week after, yung bumalik ako, ang halaga na ay 25 pesos. Magkano ang idinagdag sa halaga ng sabong panglaba? So mas nauunawaan, mas na-appreciate ng mga bata sapagkat totoo sa buhay ang mga katanungan. Now sa akin, ang test ng authenticity ay may applicability at yung applicability dapat ay may urgency. Hindi lang may applicability, ang tanong applicable naman. Pero yung applicability will take them 20 years. Dapat yung applicability kung maaari bukas nga kaya mangyayari sa buhay ng mga mag-aaral. Sige. Now, ipagpatuloy natin, dapat balance din. The test should be balanced in terms of level of difficulty sa kayong learning targets. May 5 po tayong learning targets, knowledge learning target, meron tayong reasoning learning target, we have skill learning target, we have product learning target, saka meron po tayong affect learning target. Kaya sasabi ko lagi, minumungkahi ko, kapag nagbibigay po tayo ng performance task, hindi lang dapat product, dapat din process. So yung process saka product dapat lagi magkasama sa performance task. Kaya ngayong grading system natin, written performance sapagkat ang knowledge learning target will be part of written, reasoning will be part of written, and then skill and product will be part of performance tasks. Next, we have comprehensiveness. Dapat po ang test case should gather and use multiple sources of information. Hindi lang iisa lamang na pinanggagalingan, dapat mas marami, mas maigi. At ito ay napakahalaga sapagkat meron na tayong batas ng Data Privacy Act. So our test should also be ethical. When you say ethical, the test should not compromise any parties involved, and test givers should always observe yung 2 principles. Yung the principle of do no harm, and the other one is the principle of the need to know. Now, kadalasan ang ating mga kamalian dito sa the need to know, yung pagsasauli ng mga papel ng mga mag-aaral. Dapat po sa pagsauli ng mga papel, hindi dapat nakikita ng scores ng iba mag-aaral. Kaya mali po yung pagsauli natin mga papel from highest to lowest. Hindi po. Ang pagsauli po ng papel dapat alphabetically. Kung hindi alphabetically, pwede din randomly. So, wag na natin pong isa sa uli yung mga papel ng mga bata natin, yung mga mag-aaral from highest to lowest po. Dapat yung score hindi nakikita ng mga kapwa mag-aaral sa loob ng klase. Yung tinatawag natin pong the need to know. Kung minsan ang mga teachers sasabihin, ito ang mga papel, iwan ko lang dito sa mesa, at takbuhan yung mga mag-aaral. So, ito ay nababiolate po itong principle of the need to know. Yung the principle of the no harm naman, dapat hindi yung nakakaano sa mga bata, no? Harmful sa mga bata. Kung minsan ginagamit natin yung pangalan nila bilang halimbawa sa ating pagsusubok, pero yung halimbawa ay nakakasama sa kanila. So, iwasan po natin yun sapagkat dapat ang ating pagsusuri ay ethical. Sige. Now, ito po yung stages in the development and validation of assessment instrument. May 4 po na phases. So, we have phase 1 is planning stage. Phase 2 is the actual task construction. Phase 3 is dry run. And then phase 4 is the actual administration, including evaluation. So, sa phase 1 po, ang una po, ang gagawin natin is we have to identify what objectives, what content, what skills we want to include in our assessment. We don't problematize number 1 po. No? Wala nang problema sa number 1 because number 1 is already given by our most essential learning competency. So may mga most essential learning competencies that we are expected to cover for 1 quarter. So nanggagaling po to yung number 1 sa most essential learning competency. Now, ang pangalawa yung table of specification. Kasi ang karamihan, ang akala nila, yung unang ginagawa ng teacher sa paggawa ng test ay table of specification. Hindi po. Yung una ay alamin kung ano ang gusto natin maisama sa pagsusubok at pagsusuri. Kaya ang pangalawa lamang ay table of specification. At pangatlo ay mag-decide po tayo ng test format. Now, ito po yung jargon, no? Test format. Yung mga bata, ang tawag dito ay types of tests. Pero tayong mga teachers, nag-graduate naman tayo sa College of Education, ang gagamitin po dapat natin ay test format. Ano ang test format po, ma'am? Multiple choice po ba? Tama o mali, and so forth. Now, ang pangalawa ay test construction, no? Yung actual writing of test items should be based on the table of specification. Now, ang table of specification makes our test more valid because the table of specification is our test plan. Okay? So makikita sa table of specification ng ating principal kung gaano natin ginamit yung oras sa isang quarter. How we spent judiciously the time for 1 quarter, ano yung na-cover natin, at yung antas ng katanungan na isanama natin sa pagsusuri. Kaya ang aking mungkahi, kapag ang mga mag-aaral po ay maghihingi ng coverage, Sir, Ma'am, ano po ang coverage ng ating pagsusubok? Maaari at napakagandang practice po, ibigay natin ang kopya ng table of specification sa mga mag-aaral. So napakaganda pong gawain yun ng isang teacher na binibigyan ang mga mag-aaral ng kopya ng table of specification. Now, ang pangalawa po ay dapat i-consult natin ang mga experts, no? Yung mga experts natin po ay yung mga kapwa-guro natin sa larangan ng Pilipino, okay? So, at yung mga principal natin, chairperson, kaya nga po, diba, we are required to submit our test a week before the examination. The purpose of which is for content validation po. So, hindi po maganda that we give a copy of our test after we administer the test. Okay, that is only for filing purpose po. So when the school, the principal, or the chairperson asks us to submit a copy of our test, the purpose of which is to be able to validate, lalong-lalo na po yung content. Nung ako po isang dekano, lagi ko pong hinihingi sa mga teachers na kapag magbibigay kayo sa akin ng copy ng yung pagsusubok, bigyan nyo ako ng kopya ng syllabus. Sapagkat tinitingnan ko talaga, sinusuri ko po yung mga katanungan vis-a-vis with the syllabus. At sinasabi ko na, bakit itong mga paksa dito sa syllabus hindi kasama sa pagsusubok. So yun ang ginagawa po natin dito sa content validation. Now, ang pangatlo po ay dry run. Ang dry run naman po ay ginagawa natin para malaman natin kung may mga flaws, no? Ano ba yung flaws sa ating test construction? Mali yung spelling, hindi maintindihan yung katanungan, walang sagot sa ating mga katanungan. Ito po yun ang ating ginagawa dito sa dry run. Before we are able to finalize our test, dapat mag-dry run po. Now, sa totoo lang po talaga, itong phase 3, hindi masyadong na-observe ng mga teachers natin. Sapagkat ang katanungan nila, Sir, kapag mag-dry run po ako, sino po ang mag-dry run nito? Sino po mga estudyante na i-dry run ko? Sapagkat po sa dry run, hindi pwede yung mga estudyante na kukuha ng pagsusubok. Sila rin ang mga estudyante sa dry run. Hindi pwede po. Kasi kapag gano'n, you are making the test items already available to them. Kaya ito ay may kahirapan sa karamihan sa ating dry run. Now, ang aking mungkahi, kapag hindi natin magawa itong dry run, wag lang nating kaligtaan itong consultation with the experts. Hindi pwedeng kaligtaan ito. Kasi hindi na nga tayo nag-dry run, hindi pa natin kinonsult yung ating pagsusubok, pagsusuri sa mga experts. Okay? Naintindihan po? Klaro naman po ba? Klaro po ba? Hello? Hello? Okay,
Yes,
klaro
sir.
po.
Klaro po.
Okay, sige. Sige, aking pagpatuloy po, nasa na tayo, pagpatuloy natin. Ito po yon. At ang panghuli po, yung actual administration. Now, after we administer the test weights, we have to establish validity and reliability. So ito po yung stages in the development and validation of assessment instrument. Now, ito po yung kay proseso sa paggawa ng pagsusubok at pagsusuri. Yung una, write test items based on the content and performance standards of the curriculum. So, importante po na alam ng isang guro ang curriculum. Sinasabi ko nga sa klase sa graduadong paaralan, ito ang problema kapag ang ituturo ng mga tuturo ng mga teachers ay yung mga teacher-made curriculum. Hindi pwede dapat yung ituro natin yung teacher-made curriculum. Dapat ang ituro natin ay yung mandated curriculum ng DepEd. Oo, so dapat manggaling doon sa MKELC po. Okay, so we have to write the test items based on the contents and performance standards of the curriculum. Okay, di ba? Yung kanina, yung phase 1, to determine what should be included, what learning competency, contents, skills. Okay, ito po yung number 1. At ang pangalawa, again, table of specification. Ang aking mungkahi po, we will make the table of specification simplified. Okay, because the definition of depth and of content standards, what is expected of our students to know, okay, expected of them to understand, and expected of them to do. And so, ang ating pagsusubok, ang ating pagtataya, dapat yung tatlo lamang. Expected to know, that is K. This is acquisition of knowledge. K, expected of them to understand. This is meaning making, and expected of them to do. K, performance or doing. So, ang ating table of specification, may tatlo lamang columns dapat, no? O may 4 na columns. Yung unang columns ay yung mga learning competencies na galing sa ating curriculum. Pagkatapos po, ang susunod na column ay yung K, acquisition of knowledge. Ang sunod ay understanding, meaning making. At ang panghuli po ay yung doing. Now, kung gagamit po tayo ng KUP or KUD model ng POS, yung knowledge po will be remembering and understanding. So, knowledge will be remembering and understanding. Yung understanding natin po dito ay application or applying, analyzing, and evaluating, at yung performing or doing ay yung creating po natin. Okay? At ang pangatlo po ay dapat may kasagutan sa bawat tanong. Kuminsan may mga tanong tayo, di natin alam ang sagot sa katanungan. Lalong-lalo na sa mga matematika, magbibigay ng problem solving, hindi naman alam, hindi naman masyadong alam ng teacher kung ano ang kasagutan sa problem solving. So napapahiya po tayo sa mga mag-aaral. So dapat po ang tanong na ibinigay natin sa pagsusubok, merong kasagutan at alam natin ang kasagutan. Ang pang-apat po, ensures writers are content experts. Ito ang problema ng Pilipinas. bakit napakababa yung performance ng ating mga mag-aaral sa large-scale assessments like TIMSS and PISA, sapagkat po yung mga nagtuturo at gumagawa ng pagsusubok, hindi content experts. So yun po ang isang dahilan, no? Bakit mababa ang performance ng ating mga mag-aaral. Okay, another reason bakit mababa ang performance ng ating mga mag-aaral, magpa-participate pa naman po ang Philippines in 2023 sa PISA, di ba? Ang isa pa po ay sapagkat karamihan daw ay non-readers. Kaya yung reading ability talaga ng mga bata yung problema. Kaya hindi aakyat ang performance ng mga bata kung hindi natin turuan magbasa at unawain yung pagbasa, no? Kaya yung nabasa. At ang pangatlong dahilan bakit mababa ang performance ng mga mag-aaral kasi yung technical competency. Kasi po yung TIMSS sa yung PISA, hindi po pen and paper po yun. Gumagamit po yung technology. Okay? Technology, computer-based po yun. Kaya talagang hirap na hirap ang mga Pilipino kapag merong PISA at yung TIMSS. Now, ang panglima po, dapat po ang ating test item sa isang paksa, minimum of 3 items. Kasi ang teacher may test po ang ating pagsusulit at pagkitataya sa loob ng klase. Dapat po yun ay mastery learning. Mastery learning po ang mga periodical exam natin. So, hindi po yung isang tanong sa isang paksa. Maaari ba, okay, hindi bababa sa 3 katanungan sa bawat paksa. At ang ano po nito, okay, ang dahilan is for mastery learning. Di ba? Kay mga minamahal kong guro, sinasabi ng DepEd, tayo ay standards-based na tayo ngayon. So kung standards-based tayo, criterion reference dapat. Kapag criterion, dapat po mastery learning. At ang pang-anim po, dapat we have to observe the rules on task construction na ating tatalakayin maya-maya. Okay, now, ito po yung guideline sa pagsulat ng mga katanungan. Begin writing items far enough in advance that you will have time to revise them. So, ang aking pong karanasan, kapag wala po akong ginagawa sa loob ng opisina, sulat ng sulat ako ng mga katanungan. So, pagkatapos ng isinulat ko ang mga katanungan, inilalagay ko po sa item bank. Now, ito po ang kadalasan na ginagawa natin. Gagawa tayo ng mga task items days before the exam. So, we can even write items before the beginning of the quarter. Kasi po yung mga learning competencies, yung mga topics po, na ituturo natin for the next quarter, na ibigay naman po yun ng maaga. Okay, these are already predetermined before the start of the quarter. So, okay, if we write task items much in advance, so days before the examination, ang gagawin natin is to edit or to revise them. Yung pangalawa po, match items to intended outcomes at proper difficulty level to provide a valid measure of instructional objectives. Now, di ba? Okay, sabi ni Mactay, we have to observe constructive alignment. Ito ang mga kahirapan ng mga teachers yung ating katanungan ay napakalayo sa learning competency. Dapat po yung ating mga katanungan ay akmang-akma sa learning competency. Now, halimbawa, yung aking mga mag-aaral, pinagawa ko pong katanungan based on the learning competency, ito yung halimbawa po malaman kung ano ang alam ng iba tungkol sa sarili, no? What others know about you, and what you know about yourself. So yun ang learning competency po. Pagkatapos yung kanyang pagsusuri, ang ginamit po ng pagsusuri ng teacher, the teacher asks the student to listen to a song when beneath my wings and ask the student to reflect on the song. Sabi ko, napakalayo yung pagtataya dito sa ating learning competency, malayo talaga. So, importante po itong tinatawag natin po constructive alignment. So, yung constructive alignment, kung mayroon po tayong 3 columns, sa gitna po ay yung assessment natin, tapos sa right po ay teaching learning activities, at sa kabila po ay yung tinatawag nating learning competencies. So, if this is what we want our students to demonstrate at the end of the quarter, so what should be the learning competency that we have to develop? And then, what should be the teaching and learning activities that will address for us to be able to achieve these learning competency?
Gawin nyo na yan.
Okay, sige. Now, ang pangatlo po ay be sure each item deals with important aspect of the content area. Huwag na po tayong magbigay ng mga trivia, no? Okay, sabi ko nga para tayong mga, unless gusto natin i-develop yung mga mag-aaralang parots. So yung mga trivia, yung mga simple remembering, wag na pong isama, lalong-lalo na po sa mga major exams, sa mga periodical examinations. Wag na pong isama yon. So kung maaari yung mga important aspect of content, no? Yung ang isama natin. Di ba kanina sinabi ko, okay, what gets assessed, what gets SK, what gets learned. Okay, yung mga importanteng aspekto ng ating curriculum ang gusto nating matutunan ng ating mga mag-aaral. Now, ang sunod po, dapat po yung item natin, ano? Klarado po, no? So yung item or the question or the problem should be posed very clear in every item. Kung minsan yung item natin hindi klaro sa mga bata, hindi klaro talaga eh. Halimbawa, ito lagi yung halimbawa, ang watawat ay, ang Pilipinas ay, A, B, C, and D. Ano bang gusto natin malaman sa mga mag-aaral tungkol sa Pilipinas, tungkol sa watawat? Di ba nung tayo college, ang tanong ng ating mga guro, a noun is A, B, C, D. Tapos an atom is A, B, C, D. Hindi po klaro yun sa mga mag-aaral. Ano ba ang gusto natin malaman sa ating mga mag-aaral tungkol sa atom, tungkol sa noun, tungkol sa watawat, tungkol sa Pilipinas. Tapos dapat maiisa lamang kasagutan. Now, if we ask the student to choose the best answer, dapat yung best answer, agreed po dapat ng mga expert. Kasi nakakaya po yung mga estudyante natin, tatanungin yung isang teacher sa Filipino, tapos yung isang teacher sabi, tama naman yung letter B. Tapos pupunta tayo sa isang Pilipino naman, tama naman yung letter A. So ano po talaga ang tamang sagot? So kapag po nag-i-include tayo ng item which requires students to choose the best answer, see to it that the experts in our department, sa ating kagawaran, sa ating departamento, dapat agree po tayo kung ano ang the best answer. Tapos po dapat yung ang kasagutan sa isang item yung dapat makuha, makita sa ibang items. So the correct answer of any item should not be found in any part of the tests. Okay? Sige. Tapos, we have to prevent these unintended clues. Yung mga specific determiners. Ito yung clues po na hint, what is the correct answer. Tapos, avoid replication of the textbook and writing test items. So, dapat po i-paraphrase natin. Iwasan pong kopyahin kung ano ang nandoon sa libro. Ipa-paraphrase natin. Kasi kapag paraphrase natin, understanding na po yun. Okay, avoid trick or catch questions. And then, yun nga, sasabi natin, higher order thinking skills dapat. So, i-avoid natin po yung mga trivia, no? Dapat yung higher order thinking skills. Kapagkat gusto natin i-develop sa mga mag-aaral, yung tinatawag natin critical thinking. Sige. Now, susunod, packaging the test. How do we package the test? Group together all items of similar format. Hindi po ang ating pagsusubok, test 1 ay remembering, test 2 ay understanding, test 3 ay applying. Hindi po ganun. Hindi naman po test 1 pandiwa, test 2 pang-uri, test 3, hindi po ganun. So we group together all items according to the format. So number 1, test 1 is multiple choice, test 2 is true or false, test 3 is matching. Ganun po yung pagkakagrupo ng ating mga katanungan according to the test format. Pagkatapos din po, we have to arrange the test items from easy to hard. Okay, from easy to hard. Tapos we have to space the items for easy reading. Lalong-lalo na po sa multiple choice test. Sa multiple choice test po, pagkatapos natin banggitin ang ating katanungan, immediately the options should follow. And after the options, there should be space or spacing before next item. Okay? Ganun po dapat ang format natin. No? Next, let me continue. We have to keep items and options on the same page. Dapat po ang pagpipilian ay laging magka-dikit sa mga katanungan. So, hindi pwede po yung number 13 natin na isulat sa lower portion ng paper natin. You have A and B, at yung C and D are written on the next page. Hindi po pwede yun. Okay? Hindi pwede pong ikakat natin yung ibang pagpipilian at isusulat natin sa next page. Mali po yun. Kapag sa akala ng mga mag-aaral, dalawa lamang pagpipilian, A and B, yun lang ang tamang sagot, letter C pala, na isulat natin sa susunod na pahina. So, hindi pwede yun, no? Lalong-lalo po sa matching type, hindi pwede po yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 6, 7, 8 sa kabilang page o sa likod ng pahina, maling-mali po yun. Tapos po, position illustrations. Kaya kapag meron po tayong stimulus material, kaya ang stimulus material or introductory material, yung item should immediately follow. Okay, now, ang stimulus material hindi pwedeng items, options, tapos stimulus material. Kapag sinabi natin refer to, okay, we refer them before the item. Pagkatapos, we have to check our answer key. Okay, now determine how students record the answer. Okay, provide space for the names and date. Next, check test directions. And then, very important, we have to proofread the test items before reproduction. Tinatawag natin itong camera ready. Kapag sinabing camera ready, meaning to say that it's already ready for reproduction. So kung minsan, nalalaman natin na may mga mali-mali sa ating mga katanungan during the actual administration of the test. Meaning to say po, hindi natin talaga na-proofread yung ating test. At nakakahiya din sa mga mag-aaral. We lose our face in front of our students when only during the test that we discover that there are a lot of flaws, there are a lot of errors in the test construction. Now, ito naman po ang tatawag natin mechanical makeup, no? Kung paano dapat, no, yung physical appearance ng ating test paper. So, meron po tayo dito ng heading, tapos pangalan, section, score. Yung good luck po ay laging sa unahan. Okay, kuminsan yung good luck na babasa natin sa panghuling pahina, no? Now, okay, babanggitin natin ang test format, tapos it should always be followed by the corresponding directions. Now, sa English po dapat may S directions. Okay, instructions. Hindi po direction, instruction, mali po yun. Lagi may S directions, instructions. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At yung test 2, we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ang test 2 po, okay, mag-uumpisa sa 11. Now, kadalasan ang ating ginagawa, test 2, we begin with number 1. Tapos test 3, we begin with number 1. Again, mali po yun. Sapagkat this is only one test, we only subdivide the test according to the test format. So yung bilang po ng mga katanungan dapat sunod-sunod po. Okay, mali po yung test 2, number 1, test 3, number 1, test 4, number 1 uli. Hindi, no? So test 1, number 1, test 2, okay? Test 1 ends with number 10, test 2 begins now with number 11. Okay? And test 3 now begins with number 16. And then we have test 4. Okay, we have now test 4 begins with number 21 at makikita natin yung blank dapat nandito, okay, after each item. So mali din po yung ating panuto, isulat ang tamang sagot sapat lang na naisulat bago ang mga katanungan. So mali po yung write your answer on the space provided before each number. Wala pong literatura na nagsasabi na ang blank should be written before each item. Wala po. So it should always be written after each item and regardless where the items end, ang blank po is on the same column. Tinatawag po natin itong item blank, okay? Tinatawag po natin itong answer column. So ang pangit po kasi, itong number 21 dito nagtapos, tapos agad ilalagay natin ang blank. Yung 22 dito nagtapos, kaya ang blank nandito. So ang pangit tingnan kapag ang blank po ay spread all over. Kaya yung sporadic po ang blank, pangit tingnan po yun. Kung saan man nagtapos, okay lang, pero ang blank dapat the same column po yun. At tinatawag natin answer column. Now, ang panghuli po yung test natin, essay. So, okay, should you favor? Now, ang napapansin ko din sa essay laging, should you favor federalism as a form of government? Why? Explain your answer. Dapat po, okay, magtatapos sa why not? Why or why not? Kasi kapag why lang, para bang ang sagot is always in support. Okay? Mali po yung sasabihin natin, should you favor federalism as a form of government? why, explain your answer. Dapat po, why or why not, explain your answer. Okay? Sige. Now, okay, I think everybody is familiar with this taxonomy of education, 1956 by Bloom's Taxonomy of Education, Benjamin Bloom. Okay, 1956. In 1956, the taxonomy of education was used in the field of guidance and counseling, but not in the field of education. But now the taxonomy of education is widely used, okay, in education. Now, this was revised, okay, by his former students, okay, Cratwall, no? Okay, so Cratwall kay the student of Bloom. So, tapos si Anderson naman, okay, co-author ni Bloom, ano? Okay, so it was revised in 2001. At ito ang ginagamit ng DepEd sabagat nabanggit po ito sa DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015 that ang gagamitin natin po ito yung revised version of the taxonomy of education. Ang yung pagkakaiba lamang, yung luma po in 1956 gumamit ng mga pangalan. So balit sa 2001 po ang ginamit ay mga pandiwa, kay verbs, no? So ang pinakamalaking pagkakaiba ng dalawa ay yung sa old version ng taxonomy of education, ang pinakamataas kung antas ay evaluation, but ngayon ang pinakamataas ay create. Kaya nga sasabi ko ngayon, the highest level of intelligence is creative intelligence. At dito po sa 2001, okay, si Cratwell saka si Anderson po, binanggit ang 4 na types ng knowledge. Kay Bloom po walang binanggit yung different types of knowledge. So Cratwell and Anderson able to identify 4 types of knowledge such as declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, conceptual knowledge, and then we have this what you call metacognitive knowledge. So nabanggit po yon ng bagong mga authors na si Cratwell at si Anderson. So balik po in 2008, ito po yung ni-revise ko din in 2008. Sa akin pong paniniwala, nakakatakot po na mauuna ang applying without analyzing. Dapat po mauna ang analyzing before applying. Diba sa problem solving po, una babasahin ng estudyante, maunawaan ang problem. Pagkatapos na maunawaan ang problem, i-ano ng bata, i-analyze. Okay? Ano yung analyzing ng mga bata sa problem solving? Okay? Aalamin what is given and what is asked. And after the student is able to identify what is given and what is asked, they look for a formula and then apply the formula and gives the correct answer. So dapat po analyzing muna before applying. So ito po yung pagbabago, no? Ito yung propose ko po noong 2008 na ang taxonomy of education dapat baguhin, hindi lang dito kay Cratwell Anderson, sapagkat dito sa bagong taxonomy, analyzing muna bago applying. Sige. Now, ito po yung levels ng ating mga katanungan. Kapag sinabing taxonomy of education, we are classifying the item according to the level of difficulty. So, ito po yung old, ito yung revised. Ito yung behavioral terms. Recall, memorize. Understanding, meaning-making. Applying, use information, laws, procedures, methods in a new situation. Analyzing is breaking, but at the same time, analyzing is understanding the whole. Not only breaking the whole into parts, but understanding the whole. Okay, next, evaluating is judging and deciding, then creating produces new one. So, we have here, the first 3, lower order po yun, and the last 3 is higher order. If we want to develop critical thinking of our students, and so our question should go beyond applying. So our question should always begin from analyzing up to creating if we want to develop critical thinking of our students. Now, yung first 3 po ay convergent. Kapag sinabing convergent, there's only one correct answer. But itong tatlong, analyzing, evaluating, creating, divergent po yun. It elicits many possible answers. There is no one correct answer if we have analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So, ito ang kahirapan ng ating mga guro Okay, how to identify the level of complexity. Magre-retire na po tayo, subalit hindi po natin na-master kung paano natin identify yung level of difficulty ng ating mga katanungan. Now, ito po yung practical tips ko sa inyo. Yung practical tips ko po, parang tama yung pagka-identify natin kaya yung items kung remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Ito lang po. Number 1, you ask yourself, what is required of the students to be able to give the correct answer? What is required of the students to be able to supply the answer? Okay? The students simply recall, memorize, remember. Okay, kapag ganun, then remembering. Okay? So, okay, the students judge. Okay? Decide. Do you ask the students to decide? Do you ask the student to judge on this particular item so that is evaluating? Okay, so yun po ang unang practical tip for us to be able to identify correctly the level of difficulty of each item. Ang pangalawa po, tanungin natin, ito bang katanungan, okay, does the question require only one correct answer? If the question requires only one correct answer, then okay, the level of complexity, it may be remembering, understanding, or applying. Kasi convergent po yun. But if the question requires many possible answers, so most likely it is analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay? Gets po ba? Gets po ba? Ma'am, sir? Gets po ba? Hello?
Yes po, opo.
Klaro naman. Okay. Sige, magkakaroon po tayo ng
Opo, sir.
pagsusubok at pagsusuri. Ano? Kanina yung pagsusuri natin at pagsusubok written or performance. Nalilito tayo kung written or performance. Pero sana pagkatapos ng ating webinar, klarong-klaro sa atin kung ang katanungan ay may isa lamang, sagot written po yun. Nalilito tayo sapagkat yung assessment strategy, akala natin yun na yun. Strategy lang po yun. Pero yung tanong, iisa lamang ang kasagutan. So, ang tamang sagot ay written. Kapag performance, maraming kasagutan, no? So, meron tayong another na quiz. You know, when you attend a conference or a seminar in Singapore, lagi silang may quiz, no? May quiz sila. And at the end of the webinar, you have to submit your paper. And you will not be given a certificate unless you pass in the quiz. So sabi ko, naiiba naman yung webinar, seminars ng Singapore. Okay, kaya dinagdag ko dito, dapat magkakaroon tayo ng quiz. Sige, ito po, okay, ang sagot natin dito ay remembering, understanding, okay, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So yung unang katanungan, give reasons why COVID cases in the Philippines are increasing. Ano po ang antas ng katanungan? Okay. Volunteer po dito, number 1. Okay. Ano po ang kay number 1? Ano po yung level of difficulty ng number 1? Give reasons why COVID cases are increasing in the Philippines. Okay. And volunteer. Okay. Analyzing. Okay. Analyzing. Any more? Analyzing. Okay. Analyzing. Okay. So, ang tama pong sagot is understanding po, no? Understanding. Okay. Next, number 2. Determine and justify which foods are healthiest. Determine and justify which foods are healthiest. Okay. Ano po ang number 2? Okay. May tamang sagot na po. Okay. Ginoong Paul Albius po, no? So ito ay evaluating. Evaluating, no? Okay. Mamimili dito, magja-justify ka pa, di ba? That's number 3. Write a short story that leaves the readers in suspense. Write a short story that leaves the readers in suspense. Very good, creating, no? So ang napakadali pong i-identify yung creating, evaluating, saka remembering. Napakadali. Yung mahirap po, yung sa gitna yung understanding, applying, analyzing. Yung po tayo nalilito talaga, yung tatlong yun. Pero okay, napakadali kapag remembering, evaluating, and creating. Tama po. Pang-4, locate the expected heavy rains in the weather forecast map of Pag-asa. Locate the expected heavy rains in the weather forecast map of Pag-asa. Okay? So, tama. Okay, si Sir. Okay, so remembering po ang tamang sagot. Tama si Sir RG, G, Tama. Remembering lang po yun. Next, put the information in a graph form. Put the information in a graph form. Ano pong tamang sagot? Okay, very good applying. Now, when we ask the students to interpret what is in the form, what is in a graph, that is understanding. But when we ask the students to put the data in a table, that becomes applying. Next, distinguish facts and opinions from the news commentaries. Distinguish facts and opinions from the news commentaries. Ano po? Okay, very good. Analyzing. Okay, very good. Now, ang aking wish lang po, sana sa ating test instruction, mas marami po yung higher order thinking skills kaysa sa lower order thinking skills. When I went to one school in Legazpi, ang kanilang policy is that there should only be 10% of the total number of items allocated for remembering. So if I give 80 items, at most that I can include for remembering is only 8. That is the policy of school, which is also laudable, no? Sabi ko, maganda yung policy nyo. Sana, sana all, para ma-encourage natin ang mga teachers na gumawa ng mga katanungan na sa mataas ng antas. Okay. Now, unang tatalakayin natin yung multiple choice test, yung pagpipilian. Yung multiple choices po may tatlong bahagi. Yung stimulus material, introductory material, ito po yung mga added information where we base the question or the problem and the answer can only be found here in the stimulus material. Okay, tatawagan natin po yung stimulus material. Kapag meron pong stimulus material ang ating multiple choice test, then the questions become more complex. Okay, so yung kagandahan kapag may stimulus material. Okay, tumataas yung antas ng ating katanungan. Yung pangalawa po ay STEM. Yung STEM ay yung question natin or problem natin sa bawat item. Now, ang STEM po ay hindi pwedeng isang buong pangungusap. Mali po yun. Ang STEM dapat ay isang katanungan, lalong-lalo na sa elementarya, mas maigi ng ating katanungan ay direct question. Now, kapag hindi direct question, meron tayo this what we call incomplete statement. So, maaari din incomplete statement. So, meron tayong the President of the Republic of the Philippines after the May 22 election is. So, titawag natin po yung incomplete statement. So, dapat question lang po, problem or incomplete statement, hindi pwede pong isang buong pangusap. Ang mga buong pangungusap, nakikita po natin yon sa true or false or sa identification. Tapos meron po tayong options. Ang options po, nakikita natin dito ang tamang sagot at yung iba ay tatawag natin yung foils or distractors. Now, yung foils at distractors, hindi naman nangangahulugan sila ay mga mali. Hindi. Maaaring they are only less appropriate. Okay? Lalong-lalo na po kapag we ask the student to choose the best answer from all the correct answers. So, hindi po natin sabihin na ang mga false instructors ay mga mali. So, we have the options, and in the option, we have the key answer, and we have the distractors or the foils. Now, the minimum number is 3, and the maximum is 5. Now, for maximum learning, mas maigi po as we increase the number, as we increase the number of items, dapat po i-decrease natin ang option, no? Decrease the number of options. Halimbawa, I give you 100, however, I will only have options A, B, C, D in every item. Now, if I decrease the number of items, I will only make it 50, however, the options will now be A, B, C, and E. A, B, C, D, E. So, for optimal learning po, dapat ganon. As we increase the number of items, we decrease the number of options. As we decrease the number of options, we increase the number of options. Sige po. Now, ito po yung mga poorly constructed natin. So it refers to the collection, interpretation, and use of information to help teachers make better decision. Now, ito ay isang buong pangusap. Walang katanungan, walang problema dito. So, okay, ito ang lagi nakikita natin sa multiple choice tests. Tapos sasabihin natin sa mga bata, piliin ang tamang sagot. Ano po ma'am ang tanong dito? Walang tanong. Ano po man dito ang problema? Walang problema. Pero isinasama natin ang mga ganitong katanungan sa multiple choice test. Mali po to, ano? Maling-mali talaga. Sinabi ko nga, ang kay complete sentences, nakikita natin to either in a true or false or in the identification type of test. And so we don't expect complete sentences in a multiple choice tests. So how can we improve it? Okay, better, which of the following refers to the collection, interpretation, and use of information to help teachers make better decision. Okay, so much better. Mas klaro po ito. Okay, now, another one, the most popular in US. Diba? Okay, yung nakita ko to, ang aking kasagutan ay Madonna. The most popular in US. Madonna is also popular in US. Now, kung titingnan natin, ang katanungan ay kataga lamang. Okay, hindi to isang problema, isang katanungan. Ito ay mga kataga phrase. Kapag phrase po, ito ay nakikita natin sa matching 5. Yung mga premises which are listed in column A are words or group of words. Okay, so hindi pwede po ito maisama sa ating multiple choice test. Mali man naman po ang ating pagkakagawa ng multiple choice test item. Okay, next. Okay, so this is much better. The most popular sports in US is, and then, okay, my dearly beloved teachers, since this is an incomplete statement, the last option ends with an option. No, okay, the last option ends with a period dapat. Okay, diba? Kasi incomplete statement po ito. Kapag incomplete statement, the last option ends with a period. Sir, bakit po mag-period pa tayo? Meron pong period dito after the blank. We will not ask the student to write a valuable on the blank space. We will not. So we will ask them to circle and to make the incomplete statement complete, and so the last option ends with a period. Now, maaari naman all options end with a period, but better that only the last option ends with a period. Now, this is also mali. Rizal. Okay? And then A, B, C, D. Maling-mali po to. So, yun ang mga poorly constructed items sa multiple choice test. Okay? Maliwanag po ba? Maliwanag? Okay, very vague. No? Hindi klaro talaga eh. Okay, sige. Maliwanag naman po ba? Okay, sige. Now, ito yung mga batas na dapat susundin natin sa paggawa ng multiple choice tests items. Number 1, make the STEM, the STEM should clearly formulate a problem. The STEM is meaningful. It is either written in a direct question or an incomplete statement. Okay? So this is a bad example, no? The Philippines is. So this is poorly constructed, no? Kasi it does not clearly ask what we want to know the students about the Philippines. So, the problem or the question should be clearly formulated in the item. Number 2, the STEM and the options should be on the same page. Okay, binanggitan natin to kanina. So, hindi pwedeng ikat natin. No cutting of options from the items. Dapat magkakasama laging items si options. Dapat there should only be one correct answer. There should only be one correct answer. Okay, and next, the structure should be plausible. Okay, plausible dapat. Hindi pwede na sa isang tinginan pa lang alam ng mga bata kung ano ang mali at ano ang tamang sagot. Tama po ba? Ang pinakamahirap sa multiple choice test kapag ang mga pagpipilian ay parang lahat tama. That makes our multiple choice test more difficult. Tama po ba? Okay? Yun ang pinakamahirap eh. Ang pinakamahirap sa pagsulat ng multiple choice test ay pagpili ng mga options. Ano yung mga options na ilalagay ko? Yun ang mahirap sa paggawa ng multiple choice test. Now, may halimbawa ako dito, 3 times 5 is equal at ito ang pagpipilian. Alin dito sa 5 ang hindi plausible? Now, tatanggalin na natin ang letter C sapagkat letter C ang tamang sagot. Diba? So, alin dito sa A, B, D, and E ang hindi plausible. Okay? Alin doon sa A, B, C, and D ang hindi plausible? Any volunteer? A. Okay. A. Okay, A. Wala na po ba kasagutan? A. Okay, E and D. Okay. Okay, D. So we have D. We have E. Okay, D. Okay, very good. B. Okay. Okay, very good. Now, ang tamang sagot po ito. Ang hindi plausible po ay letter D. No, hindi letter D. Sa mathematics po kasi, ang mga plausible options ay yung mga maaaring kasagutan ng mga bata kapag mali yung kanilang pag-unawa o mali yung kanilang computations. So ang A ay maaaring tamang sagot sapagkat ang bata, ang pag-unawa ay 5 minus 3. So maaaring ang tamang sagot ay 2. Okay, maaari din, 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay, tamang sagot 15. At maaari ito ay pagdikitin ng mga bata, 3 and 5, 35. Pero yung 20, imposible po na magkaroon tayo ng 20. Kaya dito, ang not plausible option is 20. So yun po yun ang tatawag nating plausible. Okay? Kapag plausible, mean to say students are equally attracted to all options as correct. Okay, so plausible. So di ba yung kumuha tayo ng let? Okay, mahirap yung let sapagkat almost all the options in every item tama. Yun ang pinakamahirap gawin sa multiple choice tests. Now, kadalasan, kapag wala na tayong maisip ng options, ang ating babanggitin, lagi natin na inasama, all of the above and none of the above. May batas po tayong susundin kung kailan natin gagamitin ang all of the above at none of the above. Okay, sige. Now, ang panglima, dapat walang pattern of answer. Okay? No pattern of answer because pattern of answer reduces the validity of the test. Ang aking mungkahi po, if we give them 40 items, di ba? May 40 items tayo, okay, A, B, C, D, maaari po ba na 4, okay, may 10 katanungan, ang tamang sagot ay letter A, may 10 din na ang tamang sagot ay letter B, at may 10 katanungan ang tamang sagot ay letter C, at may 10 katanungan ang sagot ay letter D. Kung maaari equally distributed sa 4 na pagpipilian. Sapagkat mapapansin natin pagkatapos ating isulat ang katanungan, tapos sasagutin natin, makikita natin na kadalasan ang tamang sagot ay letter A and letter B. Minsan lang letter C at napakadalang ang letter D. So, dapat equally distributed po yung tamang sagot sa 4 na pagpipilian, A, B, C, D. Now, kung hindi naman po equal, maaari bang equitable? Maaring ito ay 7, yung isa ay 11, pero hindi pwede yung letter D, iisa lamang na katanungan ang tamang sagot ay letter D. Okay? Sige. So, dapat po ganon. Walang pattern of answer. Now, ang pattern of answer kasi, diba, sa ating mga teachers, that will facilitate checking. But learning-wise, it's not good. Now, dapat po ang length ng options sa yung ng katanungan, diba? Dapat yung length ng options dapat equal. Kasi ang mga mag-aaral, kung ano man yung mahabang option sa akala nila, yun ang tamang sagot. Sasabihin ng mga mag-aaral, bakit papahabain ito ng ating teacher kung hindi ito ang tamang sagot? Kaya dapat yung options, yung A, B, C, D dapat parehas ang length. No? Pagkatapos, tatanggalin po natin yung mga specific determiners. Yung mga specific determiners is are, kasi kapag ang term natin is, tapos 4 ang options, kung ano may option nasa singular form, yun ang tamang sagot. Kaya dapat kapag ang options natin may singular, may plural, dapat which of the following is /r. Kasi the is and r is a specific determiner. Okay? Pangwalo naman po, yung stems and options should be stated positively whenever possible. No? So, kung minsan gumagamit po tayo ng mga tricky words. Ano yung mga tricky words natin? Halimbawa, avoid. dapat kapag may avoid po, dapat capitals or caps lock po yun. Not, except. Okay, di ba? Ito yung mga ginagamit natin. Which of the following should be avoided? The following are examples of except, which is not. Okay? So ito ang tatawag natin mga tricky words. Kapag may mga tricky words po tayo, dapat naka-caps lock po yun. Now, kung maaari nga, iwasan natin itong ganitong mga katanungan. Kasi as a teacher, I think you are more interested of what is rather than what is not. Ba? I am a teacher. As a teacher, I want to know what is from my student, what is a noun from my student, rather than what is not a noun from them. So kung maaari, okay, iwasan to mga tricky words sa ating mga katanungan. Okay, next. Okay, so if unavoidable to use tricky words, okay, binanggit ko na po to, kaya highlighted dapat. Now, iwasan po na maglagay ng items sa multiple choice test na mag-aano ng opinion, no? Hindi pwedeng opinion po dito. Kasi kapag ang items natin, okay, illicit opinions need to be justified, defended by our students. Okay? Next, kailan natin ginagamit ang none of the above? Okay, when it requires only absolute answer. Kaya nga sa Filipino, hindi ko matanggap kung ang ating katanungan kay alin ang pinakamagandang pamagat sa maikling kwento. What is the best title of the short story? At ang tamang sagot, none of the above. Hindi pwede po. Kasi ang tanong natin is interpretative. No? Interpretative question po yun. And so, hindi pwede po, hindi nababagay na none of the above ang tamang sagot at ilalagay natin ang none of the above bilang isang option. Now, ang pang K-12 naman po yung all of the above. Okay, all of the above. The problem naman po ng all of the above, kapag meron tayong all of the above, kaya ang tamang sagot ay laging all of the above. So yun ang problema kapag may all of the above. Okay, kadalasan, ang all of the above is the correct answer. Now, ang problema pa rin kapag meron tayong all of the above, may mga estudyante kapag ang letter A ay tama na, hindi nababasahin na ang A, B, C, and D. At ang D ang all of the above. Anyhow, letter A is the correct answer. Why should I read the other options? So yun po ang problema of including all of the above in our options sa multiple choice test. Okay? Now, to avoid all of the above, maaari ba meron tayong mga special options? Yung special options po, yung mga 1, 2, 3, diba? And then we have 4. Okay, 4. Okay, when we took the licensure examination for teachers, ang dami pong, napakarami pong special options. Yung mga 1 only, 2 only, 1 and 2 only. And then we have this 1, 2, and 3. At yung 1, 2, and 3, mother, beloved teachers, is just the same with all of the above. Pero kapag may special options po, hindi nangangahulugan ang 1, 2, 3, and 4 ay laging tamang sagot. So itong kagandahan din kapag meron tayong special options. Unlike sa all of the above, kadalasan ang tamang sagot kapag may all of the above ang tamang sagot. Dito sa special options, hindi lagi na ang 1, 2, 3, and 4 ang tamang sagot. Okay? Next, most of the reading should be in the stem rather than the options. So dapat mas mahaba ang katanungan kesa sa mga pagpipilian. Diba nung tayo kayo na sa college, what is an atom? Okay? 4 lamang salita, okay, ang katanungan, subalit ang pagpipilian napakahaba. Okay? Kapag ang mga bata naghahanap na ng tamang sagot, dapat less time for them to read. Next, eliminate excessive wording. Okay, kung minsan gusto natin, napakahaba yung katanungan. Kung minsan may mga salita tayong isinasama na hindi man kailangan. Now, ang halimbawa ko dito, okay, the Philippine flag has 3 colors, red, blue, and white. What does the blue color of the Philippine flag symbolize? Now, maaari naman tanggalin na natin yung unang pangungusap. Kahit kasi tanggalin natin yung unang pangungusap, masasagot naman ng mga bata. Kung sasabihin natin, what does the blue color in the Philippine flag symbolize? So, klaro naman yun. So, bakit dadagdagan pa natin ng isang pangungusap? Okay? Now, ito rin ang napapansin natin sa multiple choice test. Kaya ini-insert natin po to Okay, which of the following items is true or false? Which of the following items is true? Okay, or which of the following items is incorrect? Which of the following items is correct? So dapat walang ganun pong item sa multiple choice test. Sapagkat ang intent ng ating katanungan is more of true or false. So dapat mag-appear po yun sa true or false, hindi sa multiple choice test. Yung intent ng ating katanungan po ay tama o mali. So bakit ilalagay natin sa multiple choice test? So dapat hindi po to, okay, na ilalaman natin sa multiple choice test. Now, for easy reading, dapat po ang mga options capital letters. So lettered option should be in capital letters. Okay? Now, include in the STEM elements that are common in the options. Now, let me show you one example. Now, if you look at this example, the test is productively used when, okay, it. Now, what is common in A, B, C, and D is when it. Can we include the when it part of the question? So, dapat yung common sa options, dapat kasama sa ating STEM. Okay? Sige. Next, we have to arrange the options in some logical order, okay, alphabetically arranged. Kapag numbers po, in ascending or descending order. Kapag dates naman po, regardless of the months, so the arrangement should be according to the year. Pero sa akin dito, hindi ko masyadong stricto dito Kasi kung minsan, if we observe, okay, the options in alphabetical order, baka it will lead to pattern of answer, or baka naman, yung distribution ng tamang sagot, hindi na equal doon sa ABCD. So, kung maaari lang, no? Pero hindi naman sa akin ito mortal sin, no? This is not a mortal sin sa akin. Now, options are grammatically parallel to the STEM and arranged logically, alphabetically, or according to the length or value. Kaya nga sa test construction sa multiple choice test, di ba kapag ang option, idudugtong natin sa katanungan something incorrect sa grammar, mali yun. No? Kung idudugtong ko ang option dito sa katanungan, mali yung grammar. So mali yung sagot na yon. Sige. Now, saan na po ba tayo? May katanungan po ba tungkol sa multiple choice test? Sapagkat pupunta na po tayo sa pangalawang test format. Okay, may katanungan po ba? Wala po? Hello? Klaro naman po ba?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, sige. Now, ang susunod po ay yung tama o mali, no? Sa akin, minsan lang po, hindi ako nagbibigay ng tama o mali. Sapagkat ang sabi ng mga pag-aaral, ang problema ng true or false kasi, half of the items correct out of guessing. So, if I got 8 out of 10 in the true or false, 4 of the 8 correct answer are out of guessing. So, yan ang problema ng true or false. Yung isa pa po kasi sa true or false, di ba? Yung guessing effect, napakataas po yung guessing effect. Ito ang problema ng true or false. May pagsasaliksik din po, at ang sinabi ng pagsasaliksik, ito po ang finding that in a true or false, the student can even answer 3 items at most in 1 minute. In 1 minute, our students can answer at most 3 items, which the students cannot do in a multiple choice test. Because in the multiple choice test, it requires a lot of elimination process. Pero sa true or false, hindi. So, sa aking pagtuturo, magre-retire na ako next year, hindi ako nagbibigay po talaga ng true or false din. Oo, minsan lang, pero talagang iniiwasan po magbigay ng true or false. So, ito ay tinatawag natin bipolar, binary item test, or alternate tests. Ang pinaka-popular po ng binary item test, bipolar, alternate test ay yung true or false or tama o mali. So ito po yung mga batas na ating susundin sa pagsulat ng binary item tests. Number 1, construct statements that are definitely true or definitely false without additional qualifications. Now, if opinion is used, attribute it to some source. Now, halimbawa, sasabihin natin, the best president of the Republic of the Philippines is Pinoy. Now, Maaaring tama, maaaring mali. Okay, opinionated po yun. Okay, to make it definitely true or definitely false, dapat banggitin natin ang source. Sasabihin natin, according to Times Magazine published on December 23, 2015, okay, Pinoy is one of the best presidents of the Republic of the Philippines. So that becomes already true or false. Pero kapag walang source po, it's either true or false. Now, number 2, the desired method of making true or false. Now, sa akin, kung maaari, okay, we require our students to write the word in full. Isulat tama o mali kesa sa T and F or T or M. Lalong-lalo na po sa English, T or F, the students can easily change the T to F. Or I would rather, okay, write TF, TF, TF before the item. No? So TF, TF before the items, and then I ask my student, circle T if it is true, and circle F if it is false. So we have to explain clearly to our students the desired okay, making true or false, okay, in their exam. Next, we have to use relatively short statements and eliminate extraneous material. Okay, next, di dapat approximately the same length. Okay, hindi pwede yung mga tamang sagot, yung true ay mas mahaba at yung mga false ay mas maiiksi. So hindi pwedeng gano'n, dapat equal length yung true at false statements. Next, we have to avoid double negative statements. No? Mahirap po yung unawain ng mga bata. Okay? So double negative, no? So bawal na bawal po 'yon. Tapos the options should be logical to the intent of the questions. Kagabi iniisip ko, walang problema sa Filipino. Kaya ang tama o mali ay laging logical eh. Kaya halimbawa, 3 times 5 is 15. Tama o mali, logical pa rin sa tanong. Pero sa English, hindi pwedeng true or false. So ang tanong natin, 3 times 5 is equal 15. True or false? Mali ata yung option. Dapat ang option correct or incorrect, right or wrong. Okay? So dapat yung pagpipilian, dapat logical doon sa intent ng ating katanungan. Okay? Dapat ito ay iwasan. Verbal clues, absolutes, and complex. Broad general statements that are usually not true or false without further qualifications. Okay? Terms denoting indefinite degree, large, long, time, regularly. Now, in the true or false, tinatawag natin ito ng specific determiners. Ito yung mga hints. Kapag merong mga never, always, sometimes, most likely the answer is mali. Okay? Mali. Always. No? Halimbawa, okay, it never rains every summer. May never kasi eh. Kaya mali ang tamang sagot. Yung tinatawag natin specific determiners. Kung sa multiple choice test, ang specific determiner is, are, aan. Sa true or false, ito yung tinatawag natin mga specific determiners. Kaya dapat iwasan. So wala din dapat pattern ang answer. No? Taking statements directly from the text and presenting them out of context, and we have to avoid qualitative terms. Halimbawa, the most beautiful city in Bicol is Naga. Kaya may magagalit po dyan. No? Okay, so iwasan natin itong mga qualitative terms. No? Again, kapag may qualitative terms, babanggitin dapat natin ang source. According to the report published. No? Okay, so dapat may ganon. Okay? Sige. Next. Okay? Dapat meron pong introductory material to make the true or false higher objective, mas complex yung ating katanungan sa true or false. Maaari din bang mayroon tayong introductory materials like mapa, charts, graphs, mga maiting kwento, may mga tula. No? Tapos dito, babasehan natin ang mga katanungan sa tama o mali. Okay, magbibigay po ako ng halimbawa. Okay, ito po yung halimbawa natin. Tama o mali. So, the ability to recognize the relevance of information. So this is evaluating and yet presented in a binary item test. So Miss X lost her class record on the way to the faculty room. She wanted to put a notice at the bulletin board so that the public could help her find it. Which of the following sentences that tell something that would help her find the class record? So here is the instructions, directions. Circle yes if it will help her, and no if it would not. Now, if you notice the options, yes or no, but not true or false. Okay, because it should be logical to the intent of the question. So the class record is covered by a plastic. Will it help the teacher who lost the class record? The answer is yes. Okay. It was very warm when she lost it. No. Will it help her? It was on the TTS schedule. Yes. It was nice looking. Yes. It had her picture at the cover. Yes. So this is tama umali, binary item test. However, okay, the level is evaluating. Okay, evaluating. Klaro po ba? Am I making sense? Am I making sense?
Yes po.
Oo, oo. Kaya kung minsan kasi nakakahiya, college na tayo, nagtuturo tayo sa college, nagtuturo po tayo sa senior high school, pero yung tama umali natin para yung mga tanong natin tayo sa elementarya. Isang maikling mga pangungusap, babasahin ng mga bata, pagkatapos kay tama umali. College na po tayo ngayon, high school ang tuturuan natin, senior high school na. So sana naman yung tama umali, kay mas complex kay yung pagbibigyan natin katanungan sa binary item test or tama umali. Sige, now magbibigay pa po ako ng isang halimbawa ng binary item that measures higher objective. Now, ito naman ability to apply principles. Imagine, kay kanina evaluation or evaluating, ngayon naman applying. So applying in a true or false or binary items. So this is the stimulus material. Mang Pidong wanted his Baguio vegetables grow faster, so he applied as much chemical fertilizer as was recommended and watered the vegetables every afternoon. Okay, about a month later, he noticed that the vegetables were dying. So ito po yung panito, directions. Which of the following principles necessary in explaining why the vegetables are dying? If the principle is necessary, circle N. If it is unnecessary, circle U. Okay, so we have a chemical compound is changed into other compounds by taking up the elements of water. Okay, will it help explain why the baggy vegetables were dying after Mang Pidong watered? Okay, then, so the correct answer is necessary. Okay, so this is another example of a binary item, okay, measuring higher, okay, objectives. Now, I have another example here. Now, I think this is also applicable for us in Filipino. So we ask our students to read a short story, and after reading the short story, we ask them to infer or not infer. No? Okay, is this inferred in the story or is this not inferred in the story? Hindi ito nabanggit sa maikling kwento, pero maaaring sabihin natin na ito ang nangyari. Ito ang ganap na nangyari. Kahit hindi ito nabanggit, but we can infer naman. Tama po ba? So ito ay understanding. So, okay, when you ask the students to infer, okay, so that is understanding. So directions, right? If it can be inferred, and NI if it cannot be inferred from the statements. So we have here example. Sally arrives at 4:30 and knows that her mother does not get off, okay, of work until 5. Sally also sees that the lights are off in their house. So her mother is not yet home. Can be inferred that her mother, the mother of Sally, is not yet home? Yes. No? Yes. Why? Because wala pang ilaw. No? Wala pang ilaw. Okay. Next, Sherry's toddler is in bed upstairs. She hears a bang and crying. Okay, can you infer, okay, that the toddler is hurt or scared? Yes. Okay. So we have another, okay, example. Okay, at 5 o'clock, Jill saw her assistant's, okay, office light out and did not hear the sound of typing. Can you infer that the assistant went home? Yes. Oo. Wala ka nang naririnig, di ba? Na may nag-i-encode pa, may nagta-type pa. Wala nang ilaw din sa opisina. So masasabi, wala na nga ang aking assistant sa opisina, umuwi na. Okay, most of the marriage dinner guests are asked for seconds. Okay, so her guests enjoyed her meal. Yes. So mother teachers, okay, those are examples of a binary item that measure higher order thinking skills. Okay, now ang pangatlo ay matching type, no? Ibinibigay din natin ang mga matching type. Now, ito ang mga panuto natin dapat sundin. Keep both the list of descriptors or premises and the list of options fairly short and homogeneous. Dapat po yung sa lista, yung listing natin homogeneous. Okay? Like for instance, mas maigi nga, mas mabuti kung babanggitin natin sa panuto kung ano ang mga naisulat sa column A at sa column B. Halimbawa, listed in column A are definitions and listed in column B are terms. Okay, match the definitions with the terms in column B. Now, by doing so, okay, it makes it clearer. Okay, the students are guided as to what to match from A and B. And that will also help us come up with a homogeneous, okay, listing. So, hindi pwede po yung column A, column B natin, halo-halo. May pangalan, may dates, may definition, may numbers. Ganun din po sa column B. Hindi pwede. So, dapat po, okay, yung column A homogeneous po yun. Okay, maaari ang column A ay lahat mga pangalan ng may akda at column B naman po ay lahat ng pamagat ng maikling kwento. So, okay, homogeneous po sila. Okay? So, number 2, so both premises and options should fit on the same page. Ito ang problema lagi natin sa matching type sapagkat yung ibang bilang at ibang pagpipilian nilalagay natin sa kabilang pahina. So ang mga bata keep on turning from one page to another page. At sinabi natin kanina, hindi pwedeng hatiin natin, no? Lagi dapat ang mga pagpipilian at katanungan ay magkasama-sama po. So kung minsan nagtitipid tayo ng space, di ba? Kung minsan, sige, lagyan na lang natin ito sa kabila. So hirap na hirap ang mga bata. Lalo na po dito ay matching talaga. Ang hirap ang matching. Okay? So, okay, better if we can title, no, the listing. So kung ayaw natin banggitin sa panuto kung ano ang mga naisulat sa column A at column B, di ba? Sa hanay A at hanay B, so pwede din, okay, gawin natin, lagyan natin ng titulo. Okay, hanay A, okay, mga akda, okay, hanay B, mga maikling kwento. So ganun din, no? So mas klaro sa mga bata 'yon. Okay, at makakatulong sa atin 'yon kung paano tayo magkakaroon ng homogeneous listing. Okay, now use homogeneous descriptors, okay, descriptions and stems, no? So we have descriptions and then we have the stems. Now, yung column A ang tinatawag natin ay premises, no? Yung tinatawag natin stems. At yung column B ay yung option column. Okay? Panglima, arrange again. Sinabi ko kanina, this is not a mortal sin sa akin. Okay? Hindi mortal sin to. Pero itong laging mali natin. Lagi yung mahaba ay lagi dapat na isulat sa column A. Ang definitions po ay mas mahaba kaysa sa mga terms. So ang ginagawa ng mga teachers kasi, yung terms ay sa column A at definition sa column B. Kaya ang akala nila, we are asking our students to define the term. We are not asking them to define. We are asking them to match the definitions with the terms. Diba sinabi natin kanina, kay in principle, dapat ang mga bata, less time for them to read when they're already looking for the correct answer. More time to read sa mga katanungan, but less time to read when students are already looking for the correct answer. Okay? Next, again, like multiple choices po, yung mga lettered options, dapat capital din po. No? Capital din po sila. Tapos, dapat include more options than descriptions. Now, ang tanong, sir, sa grade 1, grade 2, pwede po bang eksakto lang? Halimbawa, grade 1, 10 items, and then options 10 din. Sa akin, maaari sapagkat ang reason natin bakit merong dagdag. Mas marami ang pagpipilian sa katanungan sa matching type sapagkat ayaw natin mag-guessing ang mga bata. Lalong-lalo na kapag sa panghuling katanungan, hindi pwede kung ano ang naiiwan na pagpipilian, yun na lang ang kasagutan. So, kahit sa panghuling katanungan, may pagpipilian pa rin ang mga bata. Now, ang grade 1, grade 2 kasi, hindi naman masyado sila nag-guessing. Hindi sila nag-guessing. So, sa akin, okay lang po, lalo sa kinder, grade 1, grade 2, 5 items with 5 options. Pero sa kay upper, kay grade level, dapat po mas marami. Pero hindi naman masyadong napakarami. An excess of 1 is more than enough. Okay? And then provide complete directions. Now, ang directions po ay may dalawang bahagi. Ang unang bahagi ng directions informs the students how to answer, and the second part of directions is informs the students how to record the answer. Now, ang kamalian natin sa mga panuto, hindi natin nababanggit kung paano isulat ng mga bata ang tamang sagot. Halimbawa, choose the correct answer. O pagkatapos ng piliin ang tamang sagot, anong gagawin na ng mga bata? Hindi nabanggit kung paano isusulat. Importante yon kung paano isulat ng mga mag-aaral ang tamang sagot. So, yun po ang dalawang bahagi ng panuto. Informs the students how to answer and also informs the students how to record the answer. Okay? Sige. Now, limit the number of items each set. The maximum number of items for matching type is 10. So, 10 lang po dapat. Now, sir, gusto ko din mag-15. Okay, kung gusto mo mag-15, ito po ang gagawin natin. So, we have test 3, KA, matching type. Diba? Sa matching type, you have 1 to 10. Sir, I want to add 5 pang K items sa matching type. Huwag mo nang isama. Dapat magkakaroon ko ng test 3B, matching type uli, but now you have 11 to 15. Okay, maliwanag po ba? Maliwanag? Maliwanag po ba?
Liwanag po, sir.
Hindi pwedeng pagsamahin yung 1K to 10 at K11 to 15. Kasi ang maximum nga lang po sa bawat K set ng matching type is 10. So dapat i-separate na natin yung 5 as test 3B. No? Kasi mahirap ang matching type kaysa sa multiple choice test. Napapansin natin na kapag sumasagot ang mga bata, kini-cross out nila yung mga letters. No? Kini-cross out nila. So mas mahirap talaga yon. Okay? Now, kahit sa ating buhay, mahirap mag-matching kaysa sa recognition. Diba? So mahirap talaga. So hindi pwedeng more than 10%. Sige, ating pagpatuloy. Okay? Pagpatuloy natin ang ating talakayan. Okay. So, now, ito naman. Okay, ito naman. Now, kung ang tamang sagot ay mauulit, no? Kung minsan nauulit, halimbawa, ang tamang sagot ay letter E, titik E. Kaya ang titik E ay kasagutan sa bilang pangatlo at bilang pang-sampo. Kaya dapat banggitin sa panuto na ang tamang sagot, ang titik ay maaaring kasagutan kay dalawa o higit pang isang katanungan. Dapat nababanggit yon. At that makes our assessment fair. Kasi kapag hindi natin babanggitin that the option can be repeated as an answer to another item, pipilitin ng mga estudyante na hindi pwedeng maulit ang titik. So dapat banggitin. Kung minsan alam naman natin di ba? Okay, alam natin. Okay, dapat babanggitin natin sa panuto kapag ang tamang sagot ay mauulit sa ibang bilang. Okay? So, dadako na po tayo sa pang-apat. Kaya ang pang-apat tatawag natin completion. Now, ang sabi ng iba, ito raw ay mas better, no? Much better daw po ito kaysa doon sa unang tatlo. Much better ito sa multiple choice, tama o mali, at matching type. Sapagkat dito, sa completion, ang kasagutan ay talaga nanggaling sa mga bata, nanggaling sa mga mag-aaral. So kung hindi nila alam ang tamang sagot, walang sagot, blanco lamang. Unlike doon sa una, may guessing effect po kasi yung multiple choice, true or false as matching. Kaya sabi dito, yung completion, test daw, answers are more valid than the first 3. Now, number 1, write items clearly to imply the type of response desired. Ano ba talaga ang hinihingi mo sa mga mag-aaral tungkol dito sa katanungan? Okay? So dapat yon, klaro yon again. Now, number 2, dapat iisa lamang ang blanco. Hindi pwede blank, 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 and blank. So kung maaari, iisa lamang. No? At ang blank, hindi pwede mag-umpisa tayo ng ating Okay, items with a blank. Never begin an item with a blank. It's a big no-no that we begin an item with a blank. And then, di ba sabi natin, kanina ipinakita ko, that the blanks, regardless of where the items end, should be found on the same column. So not only to put the blank at the end of each item, but put them in one single column. And that is what you call answer column. Okay? Next, we have to avoid statements taken directly from the book. Okay, yung verbatim, no? So kasi kapag ganon, remembering. So we are just teaching our students to memorize. Okay, the term is paraphrase. Again, we have to avoid specific determiners. Okay, these are clues. And next, the blank spaces should be in equal length. Okay? Kasi kapag hindi equal po yung blank, ang isipin ng bata, ito ay mahaba ang sagot, ito ay maiksi, ang tamang sagot ay maiksi. So the blank spaces in the identification type completion should be also on the same length. Okay? Next, provide sufficient answer space. Hindi lang equal length, but dapat sufficient answer space. Kapag may mga estudyante, ang kanilang sulat ay napakalaki. Malalaki yung mga titik kapag sumusulat sila. Hindi lang mahaba, hindi lang dapat same in terms of the length, but sufficient for them to write your answer. Okay? At yung binablangko po natin, let the most important idea in the sentence to be unknown. Yung po ang binabalangko natin. Kaya ang halimbawa ko dito, Ateneo Blanc Naga University was established on June 5, 1940. So ang importante doon yung date, hindi yung de. Diba? Bakit tatanggalin natin? Bakit gagawin natin blanco yung de? Hindi importante i-memorize ng bata. Okay? Ang importante malaman ng bata yung date of establishment. Now, do not over-mutilate. Huwag naman napakaraming blanco na parang wala nang thought yung katanungan natin. It becomes already very telegraphic. So, huwag naman ganon. No? Kaya nga, limit lang sa one, or if not, at most is 2 blanks in each item. Now, if the problem requires a numerical answer, indicate the units in which to be it is to be expressed. Okay. Now we proceed to the last. Okay, we have essay. Now, before we proceed to the last, can we have a break of 5 minutes? Pwede po ba? Hello?
Pwede po, sir.
Pwede naman, no? Pwede, sige. Okay, sige. We shall have a 5-minute break.
Mga mahal nating kalahok, habang hinihintay natin ang pagbabalik ni Sir Popoy, huwag po nating kalimutan na para sa araw na ito, ang ating official na hashtag at sa 4 na araw ng pandaigdigang webinar natin, gamitin ang hashtag PWW2022 sa pagpo-post ng inyong mga retrato sa social media upang magkaroon ng pagkakataong magawa ng gawad bibo aktibo at maibahagi ang inyong post sa page ng Sagif. Huwag rin kalimutan na i-like at subscribe ang aming FB page at YouTube channel. Ang Facebook natin ay Sagif at ang ating YouTube channel ay Sagif 2020. At habang hinihintay pa rin natin si Sir Popoy, kung meron kayong mga katanungan na nais ninyong itanong at linawin mamaya, magkakaroon tayo ng bukas sa talakayan ng 11:30 to 12. Kaya wag muna kayong umalis ha. At para sa hapon nga rin pala ito, isa ring napaka-exciting na topic at paksa ang ating tatalakayin na tungkol sa estado ng araling Pilipino sa ika-21 siglo at sa hinaharap. At magkakaroon din tayo ng bukas na talakayan. Hi Sir Popoy, magandang umaga po. Ayan, at nandito na, babalik ko na kay Sir Popoy ang entablado para makapagpatuloy ng ating lektura. Maraming salamat po.
Sige, no? Lalong-lalo na po tayo, mag-face-to-face natin. Mag-face-to-face na tayo, so magkakaroon tayo ng mga pagsusurat written eh. Okay, so talagang dapat balikan natin kung paano natin maisusulat ng maayos ang mga ating mga katanungan. Now, ang panghuli, okay, ay essay. Now, my dearly beloved teachers, essay is either written or performance, depending on the question. If the essay question requires only one correct answer, that is written. However, if the essay question requires many possible answers, then that is performance. Now, ang aking napansin na doon sa Deputy Order number 8, series of 2015, I think it should be corrected because the definition of DepEd with regard to written test is any written output should be part of written. Now, my question is, term paper is written output. Should it be part of written or it should be performance task? Sa akin, performance task po yun. Hindi yung simple lamang na written. Tama po ba ako? Tama po ba ako? Hello? Hello? A volunteer, would you like to comment on that? Oo, kasi kung babasahin natin yung DepEd order number, sabi ko bakit ito ang definition ng DepEd? That any written output should be part of written. So sabi ko, term paper is a written output, but this is a simple written test. It's a performance because a term paper can be written in many ways by our students. So sabi ko, there's something wrong on how DepEd defines what is written test. So, likewise, my dearly beloved teachers, essay is either written or performance, depending on question. If the question elicits many possible answers, that is performance. But if the essay question requires only one correct answer, then that is written. Now, I know, especially in high school and in college, we always include essay. Now, what is good at essay is that it teaches our students to develop a quality writing. Now, kung gusto natin i-improve yung quality writing ng mga estudyante natin, we should always include essay. Binanggit ko to sa klase ko before I had a student major in PE, and every time I gave examination, I included essay. But I also noticed that she never attempted to answer any of those essay questions. And when I confronted her, I found out because she has poverty of language. Sabi ko, paano ka matututo? Dapat magbasa ka talaga eh. Sapagkat mahirap magsagot, no? Mahirap sumagot sa essay kapag kakaunti lang ang vocabulary mo. So it teaches our students to improve their quality of writing. So itong kagandahan. And other than that, essay questions are able to evaluate, assess critical thinking of our students. So ito yung mga dapat nating alalahanin kapag tayo ay nagbibigay ng essay test sa mga bata. Have clearly in mind what mental process you want the students to use before they start to write the questions. So we refer to the taxonomy of education. Would you like the students simply to remember in this essay question? Would you like them to understand? Would you like them to apply? Would you like them to analyze, evaluate, and create? So okay, this is okay, very, very helpful in okay, writing as a questions. No? Refer to the table of specification. Write the question to clearly and ambiguously define the task to the students. Kung minsan yung tanong natin napaka-broad, napaka-broad talaga. Halimbawa dito, discussed, yung salitang discussed, di ba? So we ask a student to discuss, and when we read the papers of our students, we were not so happy because the students compare, the students critique, the students comment. And so we confront the students. I never asked you to comment. I never asked you to give examples. But that is one way of discussing. The problem is that the term that we use is discuss. And discuss is very broad. Okay, next number 3. So do not begin with the words such as what, when, and lists. Okay, so better use compare, contrast, give reasons for, give or okay, the original examples of, and then we have predict. Now, establish reasonable limits for each question. Okay, I tell you, my dearly beloved teachers, we don't have quality of, okay, no, we don't have luxury of time reading and scoring the papers of our students. Tama po ba? Ito ang mahirap kasi sa essay, yung reading time, no? It takes much of our time reading and scoring their responses. So if we can have reasonable limit, like for instance, in my case, in my class, anong ginagawa ko sa klase ko, I usually provided them with lines. So I ask my students, in not more than 10 sentences, numbered sentences. So I also provide them lines, and they are expected only to write their answers on the lines provided. Beyond the lines, I will not accept them as part of their answer. And when we ask the students to write answers within the limits, we are also teaching them how to organize and outline before writing their answers on a piece of paper. Okay, so that is what is good. So usually, am I correct? Okay, we use this in not more than one paragraph, but paragraph is still very long. So we have to establish reasonable limit. Some would even have a 1 page, and then in a page there is a box, and the students are only asked to write their answers within the box. Use essay questions with content and objectives that cannot be satisfactorily measured by the object items. And this is also, I think, the mistake of many teachers, especially in college. We are given 5 items and we are only choose to select 3 out of 5. So dapat hindi pwede may optional items. So choose only 3 out of 5. The students should answer the same questions. No? So we have to avoid giving them choices to answer out of the following questions. They make each item relatively short and increase the number of items. Now, this is very important because sometimes with teachers, we give them a lot of this what you call extended essay questions. Now, when you say extended essay questions, these are questions with follow-up questions. You have number 1, but in number 1, you have A, B, C, D, and number 2, you have A, B, C, D. So that are those are what you call extended essay questions. It's better that we make the question shorter, but increase the number of items. And next, we have to use appropriate methods to minimize biases. Of course, the best solution here is rubrics, but the rubric development is difficult, and rubric is also time-consuming for us in scoring the papers of our student. Now, in my case, to minimize biases, this is what I do. I check the papers of my students by page. So page by page. And what is good when we check papers by page, it's easy for us, it's quicker for us to check the papers of our students. Because when you check by page, perhaps for the 3 papers, you need to memorize the correct answers. But when you are already on the 4th paper, you can now memorize the options, the correct options. And so when you are already reading the last page where essay responses are written, lahat po ng papel ay nakatalikod na. So you don't read the name of the author or the owner of the paper. So that is one way of minimizing biases in scoring essay responses. So we have to apply uniform standards to all papers. Kapag may deduction, dapat may deduction bakit dineduct mo ko nito? Another student, the same thing happens. So dapat may deduction din. Okay, so where are we now? Okay, next, these are the factors that we have to consider in assigning point values. So the point value is 5, 10, 15, but there's no such rule that the point value is only an interval of 5. There's no such. It depends on the complexity of the questions. Number 1 is the time needed to respond. If the question requires the students the whole period to answer, why only 5 points? Perhaps since the whole period is consumed by them, to answer the question, it can even be 15 points or 20 points. Next, we have complexity of the questions, which I will present later. Next, of course, the emphasis placed on the answer. So these are the factors that we have to consider in assigning point values. Why is this KSE question only good for 5 points? This one is good for 8 points. This one is good for 15 points. So the consideration dapat itong tatlo. So my dearly beloved teachers, so these are the levels of complexity because this is one of the considerations in assigning point values. So the simplest SE question is selective recall. Name the congressman who died while holding their office. It looks like enumeration, but you don't only name the congressman. You have to tell something about them. Now, second is evaluating recall. Name 3 most important senators who work on the improvement of quality education. Again, not only naming the senators, but you have to write what are those programs, bills that improve the quality of education in the Philippines. Next, number 3, comparison of 2 things. So it's up to you on how 2 things are compared. Okay. Next, number 4, comparison of 2 things on a single basis. Okay, compare public and private school in terms of facilities. Compare and public school in terms of class size. So that is on a single basis. But number 3, it's up to you as to in what area you want to compare public and private schools. But number 4, it's only on a single basis that 2 are compared. Next, we have number 5, cause and effect. Why do COVID cases rapidly rise in the city in just few months? And next, we have decision. The decision is either in favor, or not. Now, should you favor, for a federal form of government, why or why not? Explain your answer. And then we have explanation. You ask a student to explain. In Filipino, we have salawikain at sawikain. We ask the students to explain salawikain or sawikain. So that is explanation. So the level of difficulty is already progressing. And then you ask the student to summarize. Am I correct? Teachers, my dearly beloved teachers, making a summary is also difficult. No, I remember when I was in high school in Ateneo Binaga, Dr. Flores, she would always ask us to summarize. And when we give summaries, when we submitted our summaries, he would always tell us that your summary is still very long. Summarize your summary because your summary is still very long. So we have summary. Next, analysis. Does national testing improve students' learning? Because in the Philippines, our students are over-tested and yet learning remains the same. Am I correct? So our students are over-tested. Every day there is a quiz, every day there is an exam, and then we have district test, school test, regional test, national test. But the problem is that does national tests or testing improve students' learning? Next, we have statement of relationship. Why does validity imply reliability? Or reversed? Now, when I give this question in my class, the students would usually compare. I'm not asking them to compare. So the answers of my student is, they will define what is validity, they will define what is reliability, and what are factors that make the test valid, and what factors that make the test reliable. I am not asking them to compare and differentiate. So most likely, or most of the time, our students do not understand the question. And that is also the problem in essay. Our students do not understand the question. When answers are very far from the question, it simply indicates that our student do not understand the question. Yun ang problema sa essay. Hindi nauunawaan ang katanungan sapagkat kung babasahin natin ang kasagutan, napakalayo ang kasagutan sa katanungan. Hindi nauunawaan ang katanungan. Next, illustration or examples of their own. So you ask the students to give their own examples, or illustrations. Illustrate a good plan on how to maximize students' engagement in the online classes. And then we have a classification to what group of politicians do Congressman X and Congressman Y belong. Explain your answer. Next, we have application of rules. Next, we have discussion. Okay, and then we have stated of A. Am I correct? Why does the school colors of Ateneo de Zamboanga white and blue? Oo, bakit kaya? Oo, bakit? So, the same thing when I asked this question to teachers of Philippine Science High School in Goa, why is the logo of DOST with four boxes colored black and powder blue? Okay, would you like to explain that to me? A statement of aim. Next, criticism. So it's better to use critique rather than criticize, because criticize is something that is negative. So better use critique, okay, critique the stand of the Philippine government on the Philippine West Sea. And then outline, outline how, okay, the university became a university, recognition of facts, okay, trace the development of Ateneo grade school in contrast to the senior high school. And then we have 19, formulation of new questions. And lastly, which is very high, okay, the highest, when you ask the students to come up with their own methods or procedures. So these are very important, okay, my dearly beloved teachers, when we assign point values. So, okay, these are the scoring methods in essay, how essay responses are scored. We have analytic, analytic, we read, okay, response item by item. So I read your answer for number 1 and then I score. And then proceed to number 2, I give you the score. And then I proceed to number 3, I give you the score. That is what you call analytic. The opposite of analytic is holistic or universal method. I read your answers from number 1 to number 3. And these questions number 1 to 3 are good for 30 points. So after reading your responses for items 1, 2, and 3, I give you a score of 21. That is what you call holistic or universal. In the analytic, no. Okay, you assign points in every item, okay, in every response in every item. Now, the third is sorting method. So the sorting method, there are 2 readings. So what do we do in the sorting method? So we have the first reading of papers, and after we read the papers, okay, we sort them according to the quality of papers. So unang pagbasa, okay, yung unang pagbasa ang gagawin ko is to sort out the papers according to the quality of response. This paper is classified as very good. Okay, these papers are good. These papers are acceptable, and these papers are not acceptable. Now, before I proceed to the second reading, I should have come up with scoring. Okay, very good papers will get a score between 20 to 25. And then okay, good papers will be from 15 to 19. Acceptable papers will be from 10 to 14. Not acceptable, okay, 9 down to 0 or 1. So that is what you call the sorting method. Now, what is good on sorting method is that you score according to the quality of responses. And then we have the last demerits, especially in college. Napapansin ko kasi sa essay, ang mga estudyante ko ano na lang isusulat sa essay. Sulat ng sulat. But ang naisulat nila, hindi naman kailangan. Very impertinent sa tanong. Mali ito eh. So ang mga bata, yung ginagawa natin, when you read the responses, tama to, oo, mali to. So you give them a demerit of 2 points. And then you proceed, mali na naman to. Okay, you give another demerit of 2 points. So for item number 1, there is already a demerit of 4 points. Okay, so, like for instance, I give you 3 items. The total number of demerits is 8. So negative 8 over 30 is equal, your final score now is 22 points. That is what you call demerits. Now in philosophy, that is usually what we use, okay, the scoring method demerits. So yun napapansin natin, ang mga estudyante ko ano lang isusulat sa essay. Okay, so kasi yung mga isinulat mo na hindi pertinente sa katanungan, so magbibigyan na tayo ng demerits doon. Kung minsan sabihin, sana hanggang dito na lang, di ko na nabanggit to eh. Kung hindi ko to nabanggit, di ko to na isama, wala sana akong demerits. Tama ka, Tama ka. Okay? So, yun po ang ating written tests. Now, before I proceed to the second, performance-based, may mga katanungan po ba? May mga katanungan po ba? Hello? Question? Question po ba? Klaro naman? Hello? Wala magtatanong po? Okay? Klaro po yun yung written sa performance. Klaro po yun sa atin, no? Yung pagkakaiba ng written and performance. Now, kung walang katanungan, pagpatuloy natin ang talakayan at ito naman ay tinatawag nating performance-based assessment. Now, ang jargon dito ng ating Department of Education ay performance tasks. Yun ang salitang ginagamit natin, performance task. Pero dapat performance-based assessment, no? Now, ano ang pagkakaiba ng performance-based sa written test? Now, in the performance-based assessment, this is an observation of process and product. Kaya nga sinabi ko kanina, kapag nagpa-performance test, dapat tayo laging may process and product. Now, ang problema po kasi kapag lagi tayong product, anong problema ng product? The problem if we are so much into products, products can be faked. At yun ang problema natin during pandemic. The one who makes the product is not our student. So dapat nakikita natin na ito ay ginagawa at nagagawa ng mga bata sapagkat nagagawa nila ito ang aking expected product sa kanila. So dapat laging kasama yung process sa yung product. No? Process is something that is observable. Nakikita natin habang ginagawa nila. So yun ang problema. So yun ang suggestion ko that to make our assessment complete, it's better that we always include both product and process. Hindi lang laging kay product. Okay. Sige. Now, ang maganda sa performance-based assessment kasi directly observable. No? Directly observable to. And student-generated evidence of learning. Now, ang kagandahan din ng performance-based assessment kasi yung mga pinapagawa natin sa mga mata ay yung mga mangyayari after graduation. So there is a degree of authenticity. Unlike in the written test, ang written test po ay hindi authentic. No? Hindi po authentic ang written test because the students may be able to enumerate, like for instance, enumerate the rules on how to play basketball. But it does not mean because I can enumerate the rules on how to play basketball, I can play basketball. Pero ang performance-based po kasi, ang performance test is not content-free. Before I can apply it, before I can do it, before I can perform it, I should know first about it. No? Dapat alam ko muna bago ko magawa yon. Now, halimbawa, hindi ako makapagagawa ng lesson plan. Okay? Unless I know how to make a lesson plan. How to write learning objectives. No? So, yun, dapat alam ko kung ano bago ko magagawa yon. Yun ang kagandahan ng performance-based assessment. Applications requires intent. So, okay, yun ang kagandahan dito sa performance-based assessment. Okay. Now, this include abilities and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate. So, sa performance-based assessment, ito po ang ginagawa. The students demonstrate, perform, create, produce. On the part of the teacher, simply what we do is observe. And after we observe, then we judge their performance. We judge their product, okay, in a form of a score or a grade. But in the performance task, lagi dapat there should always the integration of the 21st century skills. Sinasabi nga po, kapag hindi natin na-address ang 21st century skills sa performance task, hindi po natin pwedeng tawagin performance task. Pero ang tawag po natin doon dapat performing arts daw. Performing arts ang ibinibigay natin sa mga bata sapagkat none of these 21st century skills are addressed. So performing arts po yun. Ang performance task lagi should be able to address any of these. One is communication. No? Lalong-lalo na po kapag ang performance task in group, siyempre mag-brainstorming sila. So may communication po yun, may sharing of ideas sila. Tapos may collaboration. Our students always love to work with others. When you give them performance tasks, they never complain as long as they are allowed to do it in group. Next, we have critical thinking. There is a problem that you have to solve. Critical thinking. And then we have creativity. Creativity is a requirement for critical thinking. When students are able to see things differently, when students do it differently, then the students have this what you call creativity or creative thinking. So again, my dearly beloved teachers, what makes performing a performance task is because we're able to address any of these 4 21st century skills. If we are not able to address any one of this or all of these, then what we give to them is performing arts. Our students simply enjoy the howl, the yell, but at the end of the performance task, we ask, okay, what is developed among them? Is there any 21st century skill that is developed among them out of the tasks I assigned to them? Now, what are the features of performance-based assessment? As I mentioned, okay, the students create, perform, produce, demonstrate, and with teachers observed. Okay. Now, even product, when students submit products, we observe, we look at the product. When students perform, we observed, and after we observe, we judge. And then, okay, in the performance-based assessment, it intends to assess, okay, what is it that students know and can do with emphasis on doing. So the emphasis is doing of what we know. That is why earlier I mentioned that performance-based assessment is never content-free. Okay. In fact, in the performance-based assessment, the most important contents are what we ask the students to demonstrate. Okay. And next, we have high degree of realism. It involves activity, okay, where there is no correct answer. Okay. Assessing groups rather individuals. Testing that would continue over an extended period of time. Okay, am I correct? Because there are performance tasks that require our students to complete not only within the given period, but it can only be completed perhaps a week, a month. So okay, it requires an extended period of time for them, okay, to complete. And next we have this what called self-evaluation of performance or self-assessment, and likely uses open-ended tasks aimed at assessing higher level cognitive skills. Okay, there is no right or wrong answer here. Okay, so if you noticed, the divergent questions elicit many possible answers. Next, these are the types of performance-based assessment. We have restricted performance, and the other one is extended. Now, in elementary, especially in the primary grades, what we provide them, what we give them is a restricted performance task. These are simple, and these are very structured and specific, and this can be completed in a short period of time. But in senior high school and in college, what we ask them to submit is extended performance tasks. Okay, that is what we ask from them, very complex and very elaborate, okay, and even includes collaborative work, small group of engaged students, and again, requires extended time and use a variety of information. So yung ang pagkakaiba ng restricted. Restricted can be completed in a short period of time, but extended, no. Very complex and very elaborate. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, my dearly beloved teachers, when we give performance tasks, we should not only focus on product, but also a process. It is very dangerous that we base the grades of our students only on product without process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as teachers, product can be faked, no? But process will always lead to product. So for complete assessment, always assess both process and product. Okay, so these are examples of performance tasks. When you ask the students to read, this is restricted. And then we have playing guitar. This can be restricted. Okay, but if you teach for the first time, it can be perhaps extended. But if they have already mastered the use of instrument, then it can be restricted. Next, when you ask the students, okay, to analyze what is in the report or put them into a graph, then that is restricted. Next, we have when you ask the students to repair a laptop, this is extended. When you ask the students to write test items like we had in our course assessment, this is restricted. It takes time, a week for us to be able to submit a good test. Then we have creating a blog is also extended. Now, what are the characteristics of performance-based assessment? Again, perform, create, construct, produce, or do something. And it requires deep understanding. Deep understanding. Because we said, my dearly beloved teachers, in the performance-based assessment, we should allow our students to explain. Okay, so when students explain, justify, defend, so it requires this what we call deep understanding. Kaya nga sabi ng deep learning, Have you heard this what you call deep learning? If you want to develop deep learning among our students, dapat yung mga tanong natin, higher order thinking. The opposite of deep learning is very narrow, very shallow, no? Kapag ang tanong natin, remembering, understanding, applying, we cannot develop the deep learning of our students, no? So itong kagandahan dito, a deep understanding, and it involves sustained work. And then calls on students to explain, justify again, because we mentioned earlier, correctness is not the only criterion. And performance is directly observable. Now, even product is directly observable. Now, we have this what you call engaging ideas of importance. What does it mean by ideas of importance? Yung performance task should come from engaging ideas. Yung big ideas natin. Like for instance, in our course, ano yung mga big ideas natin? Big ideas. Okay? Ideas of importance and substance. Like for instance, in my course, test construction, the ideas of importance and substance is that students should be able to come up with a very good tests. Okay? Observing all the rules, and principles of test construction. That is ideas of importance and substance. Now, meron tayong mga small performance tasks, but the small performance tasks should lead to the big performance tasks. Dapat ganun kapag nagbibigay tayo ng performance task. Ang problema din kasi sa ating teacher, kapag nagbibigay tayo ng performance task, biglaan. Okay? At yung biglaan, malaki pa big, napakalaking gagawin ng mga bata So kung maaari, we should always begin from small performance tasks, and these small performance tasks should lead to the big performance tasks. But the big performance tasks should come from ideas of importance and substance. Okay? Like for instance, in our principles and methods of teaching, ano yung ideas of importance and substance? Lesson planning. Ba? You can never graduate, you can never pass in the course principles and methods unless you know how to write a good lesson plan and able to execute your lesson plan in teaching demonstration. So yung tawag natin ideas of importance and substance. Next, relies on trained assessor judgment for scoring multiple criteria and standards. Okay, these are contained in a rubric and there is no single correct answer. So those are the characteristics of performance-based assessment. Now, my dearly beloved teachers, the degree of authenticity in the performance task varies. Not all the time performance tasks are authentic. So I will give you here example. So when I ask my students to compare the two lesson plans, relatively authentic. But when I ask my student to evaluate the lesson plans, somewhat authentic. But when I ask my students to write a lesson plan, it is authentic. Now, if you notice, my dearly beloved teachers, authenticity is when we ask the students to do. No, there is more doing here. That is why we mentioned earlier that the characteristics of performance-based, it's more of doing. Okay, so we have another example. You're relatively authentic when you ask students to explain the steps on writing test items. But when you ask students to critique on how the test items are written, somewhat authentic. But when you ask them to construct sample test items based on the table of specification, then that is authentic. Remember, my dearly beloved teachers, the measures of authenticity according to Dr. Riganet in 2008, applicability, and the other one is urgency. We ask something that is applicable to them, and that applicability is very urgent. It will happen immediately after perhaps our class. Never give any performance task that's impossible for them to apply in their lives, or if it's possible, it will take them even 50 years before it happens to them. Okay, so those are the two measures for me of what is authenticity. Now, these are the strands of performance-based assessment. It is closely tied with instruction. Remember the definition of Macmillan? Okay, assessment is an integral part of teaching, but the problem is that assessment is usually done after instruction. But now, this is what is good in the performance-based assessment. As I teach, I assess, and as I assess, I teach. Okay, unlike my dearly beloved teachers in the pen and paper, I teach, and after I taught, here comes our assessment. Always after. But in the performance-based, no. One example of which is that as I teach you to dance, I'm teaching how to dance, but at the same time, as you dance, I assess. Mali, mali, mali. Okay? Mali. Okay? Kanan, kaliwa, kanan, kaliwa, kanan, kanan. So you are assessing at the same time you are teaching them. So assessment and instruction are closely allied or closely tied. That is what is good in a performance-based assessment. Number two, it encourages active learning. So instead, our students become a passive learners by simply memorizing and understanding. Here, our students become active learners because there is much of doing in a performance-based assessment. It forces teachers to identify multiple specific criteria for judging success. But for some teachers, perhaps this is not okay. This is not something that is good. Am I correct? Because they are forced to be able. Okay, they are forced to come up with a rubric, and rubric development is difficult. And a performance-based assessment is applied in all content areas. This is applied in all subjects. A performance-based assessment. And it motivates us teachers to explore the purposes and processes of schooling. But this is also the limitations of performance-based. Number one is reliability error. Tama po ba? Now, this is my comment. Kaya bakit ang daming nag-graduate at the end of the year? Ang daming with honors, with high honors, and with highest honors. Bakit? Napakataas ang performance tasks. 50 to 65%. Napakataas po talaga. Tama po ba? Tama po ba? Am I correct? Tama po ba? Napakataas. Kahit ang mga mag-aaral ay hindi pumapasa sa PISA sa ka-exam, sapagkat performances napakataas, talagang papasa ang mga bata. Papasa at papasa. Ang problema pa sa performance test, we become very generous in giving scores or grades. Kapag sa written test po, whatever is the score, we cannot change the score. But in the written test, Diyos ko, napaka-generous ng mga teachers sa performance task. Kasi iniisip natin that our students sacrifice their love life, family life, am I correct? And social life. Ay, grabe na ang ginastos, they spend so much for the project. Kaya napakataas ng marka ng mga bata sa performance tasks. So ito ang problema talaga. Okay? Ito ang problema natin. Kaya nga ang aking mungkahi, kung maaari ba, yung quarterly assessment, wag na tayo mag-performance task. Para naman yung grado ng mga bata, yung marka ng mga bata, 50-50. 50 written test, 50 performance task. Kasi di ba yung written test 30%, quarterly assessment 20%. Kung gagawin natin written pa rin yung quarterly, so maging 50-50. So yun ang aking minumungkahi. Di ba? Kahit si Randy David, na isulat ni Randy David sapagkat napakaraming summa cum laude ngayon sa UP. More than 155 ata yung summa cum laude sa UP. At ang sabi ni Randy David sa kanyang sinulat sa Philippine Daily Inquirer, yung grade inflation, pataasan ng marka. Yung pataasan ng marka dahilan din dito sa performance tasks. Tama po ba? Now, hindi lang naman generous ang teacher. May mga teacher din na napakakuripot magbigay ng marka. Ginawa natin ang lahat pero ang baba pa rin. So ang tinatawag natin severity error. At yung mga teacher na talagang ayaw na ayaw natin. Kaya galit na galit tayo sa mga teacher na ginawa natin ang lahat, subalit napakababa ang marka. Ang gusto naman natin ay yung mga teachers na napakataas magmarka sa performance or sa product natin. May mga teacher naman na playing safe. So kapag nagbibigay ng marka, sample tendency, sa gitna lamang. So if the highest score is 15, so pumapalo yung score ng 12, 11, 10, doon lang yung tatawag natin doon, sample tendency error. Now, another limitation ng performance-based assessment in sampling. Diba? So, kakaunti lang ang maaari. In fact, narinig yung tatawag natin integrative assessment. Diba? Nung nagkaroon ito ng pandemya, at sa pandemya pa tayo, may mga paaralan that they only require 4 performance tasks in 1 quarter. 4. So, limited, yung integrative assessment. The performance task comes from multiple learning competencies. Yung tinatawag natin integrative assessment. Now, the integrative assessment makes works less burdensome, Diba? So, kay parents and students will not be burdened. Kasi ang problema naman kasi sa ating mga teachers, napakaraming pinapagawa. And that was the complaint of many parents during pandemic. Mas gugustuhan pa namin face-to-face sapagkat kaunti lang pinapagawa ng teacher. Nung nagka-pandemya, napakaraming performance tasks. Kaya dito naman sampling talaga no? Sampling. Lalong-lalo na kapag yung integrative assessment, there are only 4 performance tasks from different learning competencies in 1 quarter. And of course, this is very time-consuming, not only for our students, but for us teachers. Time-consuming for them to construct the tasks and time-consuming for us to check. So ito yung mga limitations ng performance-based assessment. So ito yung constructing performance-based tasks. So una, identify the performance tasks in which students will be engaged. So ito number 1, babalikan natin ang most essential learning competencies. Okay, so klaro dapat sa atin at the end of the quarter, what do I want the students to demonstrate? What do I want the students to perform? What do I want the students to produce? Dapat number 1, klarong-klaro yan. Hindi pwedeng at the middle of the quarter, doon tayo mag-a-announce na ito ang i-submit sa akin. Okay, hindi pwede. At the beginning of the quarter, we should clearly communicate to them what we expect from them. What performance tasks, either process or product or both, we expect them to do in class. Next, develop descriptions of the tasks and the content in which the performance is to be conducted. Now, sometimes kaya ang problema natin sa performance tasks, we give them performance tasks, but it's not clear for our students of what we ask them to do, perform, or produce. So, kuminsan ang daming tanong ng mga bata, Ma'am, ano po yun? Sir, ano po? Sir, pwede pa? Kaya dapat meron tayong prompt. No? Dapat may prompt. Gagawa tayo ng performance task prompt. So, sa performance task prompt, ang tanong natin, individual po ba or group? Okay, specific po ba on a particular learning competency or integrated? Restricted po ba to? Mean to say, this will be done simply or this will be submitted in a short period of time? Or will you allow us to work in group? And will you allow us to submit our product, complete our performance in a longer period of time? Now, these are the characteristics of performance tasks. Integrate the most essential aspects of the content being assessed with the most essential skills. Now, what is good at performance tasks is that we're able to assess multiple skills. Okay, multiple skills, not one at a time. Unlike before, we were assessed one at a time, grammar muna and then literature. But now we integrate both literature and grammar in our Filipino subject. So ano yung essential skills that I want the students to be assessed of? And again, it should be authentic, It should be authentic. If it is authentic, it is realistic. And next, requires judgment and innovation as the students to do the subject, much of doing, replicates or stimulate real problems, assesses the student's ability to efficiently and effectively use a repertoire of knowledge and skills to negotiate a complex tasks, allows to rehearse, practice, consult. When we allow our students to rehearse the performance task, practice, consult, that is what we call a formative assessment. So even in the performance tasks, there is what you call formative assessment. Okay. Next, we have to structure the task to assess multiple learning targets. So this is what is good in the performance task. There are a lot of multiple targets being assessed on the same tasks. Okay, and then structure the task so that you can help the student succeed and make it feasible. Sometimes the task is very impossible for our students to be able to complete in a given time. So feasibility and then help the student succeed. That is why very important at the very beginning, we have to tell on how things should be done. Okay, next, multiple solutions. Now, this is also one thing that we have to correct among ourselves. Kung minsan sabi na, dapat ganito yung paggawa mo. Ganun yung pagkagawa ni Maria. Tingnan mo yung pagkagawa ni Maria. Dapat ganun din yung paggawa mo. Hindi pwede. Hindi pwede. We should always allow our students to do things in different ways. Kaya kung minsan narinig ng teacher, tingnan mo yung gawa ni Pedro. O dapat gano'n ang paggawa mo ng project Kaya tanungin mo si Pedro kung paano paggawa niya. No. Okay? So there should be multiple ways on things should be done. And this one, the path should be clear. And at the same time, it should be challenging and stimulating to students. When it is challenging and stimulating, the students are able to sustain their work until the end, until the completion. And there should always be a rubric, and the rubric is always presented before the students perform, demonstrate, create, and the rubric is always written in the present tense. Hindi pwede po ang rubrics written in past tense or in our past tense. And next, we have this hazard management. Now, what is hazard management? Dapat sabihin din natin yung mga dangers of doing, lalong-lalo na sa science, sa PE, di ba? Yung mga chemicals, what will happen if we will do this one? So dapat kailangan banggitin natin itong hazard management. Halimbawa, mayroon tayong mga group activity outside the school, dapat klaro yung mga hazard management sa mga bata. Okay, so that we can avoid accidents. Okay, now, we have performance task from. To make things very clear, dapat ang teacher lagi nagbibigay ng performance task from. Okay? Before the student should be able to do, perform, create, produce, dapat ang bibigay ang teacher ng performance-based task from. Now, according to Macmillan, the performance task from includes only 3 parts. The nature of the final product, or the nature of the final performance, what the students are required to do, the criteria to be used to judge the final product or the final performance. So we have here example, no? So this is the nature of product. This is what we are required of to do to be able to come up with this final product. And then these are the criteria for judging. So you mentioned the criteria, but you have to attach the rubric. Now, I will give you an example of the work of my student, no? So Julian Abelardo, BS Math. Okay, of course, I asked permission from her if I can show this to my participants in the seminar. So I'm not sure, no? So this is for me a very good work of my student. So the topic is the nature of the final product. I don't know. Okay, so this is the part I mean. Okay, so this is the part. Okay, the nature of the final product. Okay, what are required of them to do, and then the last is the criteria for judging. So working in groups, create an original story that deals with mathematics. Come up with a book cover, introductory pages, and the original story. Before starting with the project, a topic must be approved first. So it's clear that the topic must be approved by the teacher. The topics can be in these following suggestions or ideas. Topics such as percentages, fractions, decimals, solving equations, order of operations, polygons, geometric shapes, volume or area of formulas, negative numbers, symmetry, or combination of these concepts. So topic about mathematics and its application in a day-to-day life, topic about mathematics, their life and contribution, topic about the rich history of math, and topic about specific career that mainly use mathematics. So the story can revolve around the professionals of specific career and how, when, or why we use mathematics. So the title can be from these suggestions: A Day Without Fractions, In the Land of Shapes, The Mad Math Man, The Math Machine, The World That know math. And then what are the students required to do? Ito na yon. Together with your group. So you're allowed to work in a group. You will make an original story about mathematics. First, you need to choose a topic, create a title, and it must be approved. Secondly, you need to create both the front and the back cover of your book using either one illustration board or construction paper. The front cover must contain an original art illustration, the title of your book, author's name, and your members, and the date. You will create an ISBN number, and it will be included at the back cover, together with a short synopsis, the price, and the publisher. Thirdly, you need to create a 2-page introduction. Okay, so, and then we have the criteria for judging. Now, when a teacher gives this a performance task from, everything becomes clearer before our students begin to work with their projects, before they begin for their performance. Okay, so this is the importance of performance task from. Now, we have another one that is the model of Macmillan, but I'll give you another model of Wiggins and McTighe. This is simpler than the model of Macmillan. We have the GRAST model. Okay, so when we give performance tasks, okay, we have to give these GRASTs. So GRASTs, okay, G stands for goal. What task do I want my students to achieve? Role, what is the role of students in the task? Audience, who is the student's target? And, now, this is always the comments I have with my student. The audience is always their classmates and teacher. Okay, the audience, to make it authentic, it should go beyond. It should go beyond. Okay, teachers and students in the class. Okay, can we mute the microphone po? Can we mute the microphone? Okay, thank you. And then we have situation. Okay, situation. And then we have also product, performance, and purpose. What will students create, develop, and perform or perform? And then lastly, we have standards and criteria for success. So I'll give you a sample of these GRASTs. Okay, so to help you create the GRAST task, you can have these examples. Goal, your task is to, the goal is to, the problem or challenge is, the obstacle to overcome is. What is your role? You are, okay, you have been asked to, your job is. Audience, your clients are, again, please go beyond classmates and teacher in the classroom to make it more authentic. The target audience is the barangay officials of Naga, something like that. You need to convince the market vendors, okay, in one municipality. Okay, situation. The context you find yourself in is the challenge involves dealing with, next your product you will create in order to, you need to develop, and your standards, your performance needs to, and so forth. So we have here example. Your goal. Your goal is to help a group of foreign visitors understand the key historic, geographic, and economic features of our region. So that is the role. So, okay, your group, so because it's a group work, okay, so okay, your goal is to help the group, of foreign visitors. So this is not a group work, but a group, you have a group, okay, of foreign visitors, and you will help them understand the key historic, geographic, and economic features of the region. What is your role? You are an intern at the real office of tourism. What is your audience? The group of 9 foreign visitors who speak English. Situation. You have been asked to develop a plan, including a budget, for a 4-day tour of the region. Plan your tour so that the visitors are shown a sites that best illustrate the key historical, geographic, and economic features of our region. And then you have the product. You need to prepare a written tour itinerary, a budget for the trip. You should include explanation of why each site was selected and how it will help the visitors understand the key historic and so forth. And then the standards. So my dearly beloved teachers, okay, before the students begin to produce, create, demonstrate, we should always give them this what you call performance task prompt. Now you have 2 options. It's either you use the model of Macmillan or you use the model of Mactay. Now for me, it's simply here that we use the model of Mactay. Okay, maliwanag po ba? Clear? Clear po ba?
Clear po, sir.
Okay, very good. Very good. So wala nang tanong doon kasi lahat na nabanggit natin, what we expect from them, nandoon na po sa performance task prompt. So everything is made clear, okay, dito sa performance task prompt. Okay, now, ano ang ating assessment tool? Binanggit ko to, rubric, Okay, rubric makes our assessment more transparent. So the students are informed before they start their work what makes an excellent project. Okay, so we make our assessment more consistent, for consistency and for transparency. So we have a rubric. So yun ang ginagamit natin sa skills and product. Yung written test po ay for cognitive domain of learning. Okay? Now, rubric is typically an evaluation tool. However, according to Macmillan, okay, it should always be a package of the string. So the elements of a rubric to Macmillan, dapat itong tatlo ay okay, laging magkakasama-sama. Dimensions, yun ang term ni Macmillan, pero sa atin tinatawag natin yung performance criteria or performance indicators. So what are the essential traits that you are looking at in the project or product of our student? And after we identify these performance indicators, then we proceed to performance levels. Okay, performance levels. So it can be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, numerical, or it can also be interpretive, excellent down to needs improvement, or it can be a combination of both. Now, I would suggest, my dearly beloved teachers, not to include poor. Huwag naman maglagay tayo ng poor. Better to include needs improvement. Bakit sir needs improvement? Because our assessment today provides considerable feedback. So better say needs improvement rather than poor. And then we have criteria, performance descriptors. So what is the performance descriptor in each of these performance indicator in every level? And this is the most difficult part of rubric development. Now, my suggestion in writing performance descriptors, we have to be consistent po. Kapag gumamit po tayo ng quantity, qualitative, quantitative dapat. Hindi yung pag-excellent, ang sabi tayong all, pagdating natin sa very good, okay, satisfactory. Ang all is quantitative, satisfactory is quali. So hindi consistent po tayo. Yun ang napapansin ko eh. There is no consistency in terms of language. Kapag sa performance descriptors, gagamit po tayo ng language. Yung language is that one that differentiate the performance from one level to another. Okay? Yung level of graduation, tinatawag natin. Kapag ginagraduate natin po ang level of performance, gagamit po tayo ng language. Okay, gagamit tayo ng mga verbs, okay, at adjectives. Okay. So, performance criteria, performance levels, and then we have another performance descriptors. So, ito ang halimbawa ng mga language. Consistently, usually, rarely, minimal, partial, complete. So, these words graduate the level of performance of every performance indicator. Now, ano ang iba't ibang uri ng rubrics? May 4 po tayong uri ng rubrics. Okay? Yung naituro lang sa atin nung tayo na sa college ay 2, yung analytic saka holistic. So, dadagdagan po natin ng 2, no? Yung una ay holistic. Ito po yung holistic, ano? Okay. Ang holistic po ay may 2 lamang columns. Okay? Yung first column po ay yung scale at yung pangalawang column po ay itatawag natin performance indicators and descriptors. Okay? Ito po yung holistic. Now, usually, the criteria and performance indicators are put together in paragraph or in sentences, no? Sentences. And usually when these are in sentences, we put semicolon as separator. Okay, ito ang holistic. Now, saan natin ginagamit ang holistic? Ang holistic rubric ginagamit natin sa restricted performance tasks. Okay, ginagamit po natin ang holistic rubric sa mga
Sana all automatic. Sana all automatic. Automatic lang tawag ito. Hindi automatic.
Automatic na talaga.
Okay. Okay. Pwede na pa magpatuloy tayo? Pagpatuloy natin. Sige, may feedback. Okay? So ito ang halimbawa ng rubric, no? Okay, holistic po to. Ginagamit natin ang holistic sa elementarya at sa mga restricted performance tasks. Pero kapag high school, college, ang ginagamit po natin ay analytic. Kasi sabi natin, ano ba naman yung gawa mo pang elementarya eh. Sapagkat ang analytic, mas detalyado, mas grabe ang expectations natin sa mga bata. Analytic po yun. Now, ang analytic, lagi pong in different columns and rows. Nasa grid po lagi yun. Okay? Kung makikita natin kanina, ang holistic 2 columns lamang, so balit po ang analytic, if you look at it, grid po yun. So dito po, makikita natin, nandito ang criteria, performance indicators. Dito po yung performance levels. Okay? Ang ginamit po ng performance levels ay combination ng numerical sa interpretative adequate. Pero ang comment ko po dito, dapat excellent. Hindi dapat good. Dapat competent, di ba? Okay? Which is better, competent or good? Oo. Now, napapansin din natin dito, ginamit dito ay present tense demonstrates. Hindi pwedeng demonstrated or submitted the project a week after. Dapat submits because the rubric is presented before the student begins the work. Hindi pwede po ang rubric na sa past tense. No? Hindi pwede po. So ito po yung criteria performance indicators. Ito po yung performance levels. Ito sa baba po ng performance level, katawag natin descriptors. So you are describing what makes an excellent knowledge of forms. What makes an excellent spelling and grammar. Ito ang tinatawag nating analytic. Okay, so yun ang analytic, nabanggit ko na. Ang analytic rubric ginagamit natin sa extended performance tasks at sa higher, upper, grade level. Now, ang pangatlo pong rubric ay ang tinatawag nating anaholistic. Now, ang anaholistic po, laging may ganito. May mga language na ginagamit, satisfies all, may enumeration. Satisfies all, meets all, complies all. Kapag may ganun po, tinatawag natin yun anaholistic. Pero hindi lahat po ng criteria may enumeration. Kung makikita po natin dito sa content, discusses all the important key points, walang enumeration. Relevance po, walang enumeration. Pagdating sa organization, may enumeration na. Yun ang tinatawag nating anaholistic. A combination of both. Now, kapag anaholistic po, uulitin po natin to. Okay, pagdating natin sa very good, satisfactory, needs improvement, uulitin natin ang lahat nating na enumerate. Hindi lang sasabihin, satisfies two of the following. Satisfies, babanggitin for clarity purpose, dapat uulitin po natin. Ito ang tinatawag nating anaholistic. Now, kung babalikan natin ang analytic, wala po dito makikita tayong enumeration. Tama po ba? Walang enumeration dito. Walang language na complies all, satisfies all, meets all. Walang ganon. Analytic po to. Pero pagdating po natin sa analytic, meron na po tayong language na satisfies all. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Satisfies 2, satisfies 1, satisfies none of the following. Yung po ang tatawag nating analytic. Now, okay, pagdating sa creativity, meron naman tayo ditong language satisfies all, pero pagdating sa cooperation up to delivery, wala pong enumeration. So, tinatawag po natin itong analytic. Now, ang pang-apat po, ang tinatawag nating single point rubric. Now, ang single point rubric po, less language. Now, kung tatanungin natin ang mga bata, binabasa kaya ng mga bata kung ano na isulat natin sa analytic or sa holistic? Sa analytic at holistic, napakaraming salita. Pero dito po sa single point rubric, kakaunti lamang ang mga salita. Okay? So, ang problema naman dito sa single point rubric, okay, it requires us to write more. Okay? So, gagawa tayong comments. Ang teacher magko-comment. Unlike dito sa rubric, kapag analytic po, wag na magko-comment tayo. Wala nang comment. Ma'am, ano masasabi mo? Nandoon na eh. Nandoon na sa rubric. Sa analytic rubric, lahat ng mga in-expect ko sa inyo, nandoon na sa rubric. So, I don't need to comment kasi nandoon na. Everything is already put in the analytic rubric. Pero dito sa single point, ito lang ang problema. Talaga magsusulat po tayo ng comment. So, ito ang halimbawa ng single point rubric. So, these are the criteria. These are the performance indicators. Okay. And then you write yung exceeding, evidence of exceeding. Ano yung kagandahan? Ano ba saan ba sila nag-exceed sa expectation natin? Now, sa kabila naman, ano yung concerns? Ano yung dapat i-improve ng mga bata? So, ito po ang tinatawag nating single point rubric. Okay? Maliwanag po ba? Maliwanag? Okay. Am I making sense?
Yes po, sir.
Okay. Okay pa po tayo? Okay, now. Okay. Dadako na po tayo sa pangatlo, yung portfolio assessment. So please give me time to transition. I'll close my PowerPoint presentation and then I move to another one. Okay, nakita na niyo. Okay, can you see the screen? Kita na po ba?
Opo, kita na po.
Okay. So ito ang pangatlo, no? Yung trimodal assessment. Written tests. Okay. Next, we have performance-based and then portfolio assessment. So portfolio assessment po. So we have to correct our understanding of what is portfolio assessment because I know some of us, okay, are using portfolio assessment but we need to be corrected lang po. Now, before I proceed, what is portfolio assessment? Ano ang sinasabi ng mga theorists, yung mga educationists? Kapag sinabing educationists, sila po ang mga gumagawa ng theory sa education. Kapag sinabi po nating educator, sila po ang mga practitioners ng mga theories. No? So ito mga educationists po. So one is, okay, we have Howard Gardner, okay, the proponent of multiple intelligences. And according to Howard Gardner, if we want to know what people are capable of doing, then we need to look beyond the kinds of information we get from pen and paper tests. The pen and paper test can only be or is only favorable to those who are linguistically and verbally intelligent students. Di ba sa loob ng klase, yung mga estudyanteng sinasabi ng matatalino ay yung mga verbal at saka yung mga mathematical, no? So, but yung intelligence ng bata, hindi lang namin measure, hindi lahat namin measure sa pen and paper. Yun ang sinasabi ni Gardner. So, human potential encompasses intelligence may come in different forms: verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial visual, musical kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, natural, existential, and then we have a scale. Now, these multiple intelligence can be classified into three. So we have language, related intelligence, okay, yung mga verbal, yun, okay. Next, we have object-related, yung mga spatial, illogical, mathematical, and the third is a person-related, no? Yung mga inter- and intrapersonal, person-related intelligence po yun. So the multiple intelligence can be classified into three, no? So we have language-related, next we have object-related, and the third is we have a relationship or person-related, no? Okay, now, portfolio assessment, purposeful, ongoing, dynamic, collaborative process of gathering multiple indicators. This is a one-sentence definition, but almost all words are underlined. Purposeful. There is a purpose why we include that artifact in our portfolio. Okay, ongoing, no? A dynamic because our students are not passive learners here. They are doing, because we said portfolio assessment is also performance task, but this is much better than a one-shot performance task because we allow our students to reflect on their works. So, but multiple indicators. So, see to it that what the students include in the portfolio are evidences of multiple learning evidences of our students. Now, ang problema natin, di ba, tama ba? Kung bubuksan natin ang portfolio, ang lahat ay mga papel, mga quizzes at tests. So kapag ganun, lahat mga quizzes at mga tests, so it cannot be multiple indicators. Dapat yung artifact, up to artifact 7, should be varied. Iba-iba yung entries ng mga bata sa portfolio. Okay? So a collection of artifacts accompanied by reflective narrative. So ito ang pagkakaiba because the heart of portfolio is narrative, reflection, or reflection narrative. Ito po yun. And as I mentioned, when our students reflect on their works, reflections deepen their understanding and extend their learning. Now, We have this one, okay? Okay, that is why it is much better than performance tasks, more than authentic than any one-time performance tasks. Because portfolio assessment is a collection of a different performance tasks carefully selected by our teacher. So how portfolios can be presented? Paper-based portfolio. Before the pandemic, I always ask my student to submit paper-based portfolio. So this is an example. Next, offline digital portfolio. Okay, even during pandemic, I don't like that portfolio be submitted in the offline digital portfolio because of viruses. It can be a diskette or USB. And then we have another one. We have web page. This is what I ask my student to submit. But the problem is that we use different applications, and I'm not familiar with the applications we used to create their e-portfolio. And then, of course, we have their LMS-based e-portfolio. Next, a portfolio may include classwork, artistic pieces, photographs, a media, all demonstrating the concepts of what the students have mastered. Again, very important that in the absence of reflection in every artifact, it can be considered as portfolio. Remove reflection, then it can be portfolio. And next, there is always self-assessment, and then we have this self-assessment for them to improve their work. So these are examples of e-portfolio, can be presented in a YouTube, Google Docs, etc. Okay, so these are examples. So this is, I think, one thing that we have to be corrected. It is not a placeholder for all or random student work. And this is not a compilation of students' work. So hindi pwede. Hindi pwede kung ano lang gustong ilagay ng mga bata sa portfolio. Okay? Hindi pwedeng lahat ng ginawa ng bata ilalagay sa portfolio. It's not a compilation of student works. I remember when I accredited one private school, when I interviewed the teachers, if they're already into portfolio assessment, of course, with all their pride, told me that they are already into portfolio assessment. And he even asked me if I have not seen portfolios in the exhibit. But at the back of my mind, I wanted to tell them that what I have seen is only a compilation of student works. Why? There is no goal and there is no reflection in every artifact submitted by the student. Okay, so it's only a compilation of work. Okay, now to make portfolio process educational, very important that we have to guide our students in the selection. So we have to teach, we have to guide them on what to be included in the portfolio, and we have to explain why it should be included. Kaya tinatawag natin, not a placeholder. Okay, what are included are carefully selected, and there's a reason why these are included in the portfolio. And to make it educational, very important that the teacher should guide our students in the selection. Because if the teacher will not guide the students to select what will be included, then what is included poorly selected. Okay, now in my case, I always ask my students artifacts 1 to 5. So I tell them what should be included in artifacts 1 to 5. However, for artifacts 6 and 7, it's up to you, no? Or it's up to them what you want to include. It's up to you, no? But for 1 to 5, these are what I expect from you to be included in the portfolio. Okay? So we will skip this one because of time. Okay, we'll skip. Now, my dearly beloved teachers, why do we assess in portfolio assessment? If earlier we said that what is good of written tests, it is easy for us to rank the students, scores already available, but look at these, my dearly beloved teachers. The problem of objective tests, am I correct? Objective test is very appropriate for knowledge learning target. It may also assess reasoning, skills, product, in affect. Okay, objective tests with rubrics, tests that requires construction like essays, problem solving, very appropriate for reasoning. Performance tests with rubrics, actual demonstration or product, very appropriate for skills and products. But if you look at portfolio assessment, it is very appropriate, almost all, from knowledge learning target down to affective or affect learning targets. So that is what is good of portfolio assessment. It is very appropriate beginning from reasoning, skills, product, and affect. Okay. Now, let me continue. These are the characteristics, clearly defined purpose and learning targets. Okay. So we teach our students to organize collection, how the artifacts, how the entries in the portfolio will be organized. So we teach them. And then there should always be pre-established guidelines. I always inform them of their guidelines. Like for instance, I don't like that you put silver dust on every entry. I don't like that. I don't like that your artifacts are scrolled because it takes time for me to open. I don't like for instance, yung sinusunog, di ba, ng kandila, yung parang collage making, I don't like that. So you have to tell them, okay, your guidelines, what will be included, okay, in the portfolio. Next, okay, student selection. We should always allow our student to select, not always that, okay, we select of what is to be included. So the student should also be given, okay, should also be allowed to select what we want to include. That is why for artifacts 6 and 7, I allow them. It's up to you what to include. And then again, we have this self-evaluation and self-reflection, no? And then progress documented with specific products and evaluation. Okay, next, clear and appropriate criteria for evaluating student product. And we should always end portfolio assessment with conference. Very important, no? So we always end with conference. So my dearly beloved teachers, okay, these are the processes that we have to, okay, before I present the processes, these are the principles. Content principle, no? Okay, it reflects the subject matter that's important. The artifacts, okay, come from the most important subject matter. And please limit only at most to 7. No, 7 artifacts are more than enough, no? And then learning principle, okay, our students become thoughtful because we allow them to reflect, and equity principle because it respects different, okay, intelligence of our students. So learning styles, multiple intelligences, okay, and so forth. So these are the types of portfolio. We have work portfolio. We have this what you call a show portfolio. And then we have this what you call documentary portfolio. So we have working portfolio. This is in progress, no? A working process portfolio po to. So in my class, okay, I always ask my student to submit, and then I comment, no? I put a lot of comments, and then afterwards, I ask them to revise. So, okay, the draft is what we call working portfolio. Okay, that is in process. So the working portfolio should be ungraded. Walang marka dito eh. And then okay, we have the show portfolio. This is the product, no? You always show, you always display the best. And the best is only after, okay, you have commented the work of our students, okay, the unpolished. Okay. And then okay, in my class, I always ask them to submit this what you call documentary or assessment portfolio. I ask them to submit both the unpolished and the polished versions because I want to compare the draft and the final work of my student. I want to see how students are able to improve from the process now into product. So that is what you call documentary portfolio. And this is what I ask my student to submit at the end of the semester, documentary portfolio. Not only the product, not only the best, but I always ask them attach the works, the drafts with my comments. No, I want to see on how you improved your work before and now. Okay, so my dearly beloved teachers, okay, only the documentary portfolio and show portfolio are graded. Okay, so yung po yung process portfolio, working portfolio, hindi po dapat ibartahan. Okay, so let me continue. Okay, ito na po yung pinaka-importante, yung process. Because in the absence of process, hindi natin masasabing ang ibigay natin sa mga bata portfolio assessment. So we begin with setting goals, followed by collect, select, organize, reflect, evaluate, and then confer, exhibit. Okay, di ba kanina sabi natin should always end with conference. So let me give you an example. So at the beginning, the student should be able to set their goal while they are doing such artifact. So this is an example of goal setting planner. What I want to target are, I am doing this work because I want to accomplish, okay? So yun. So the artifact should always begin with a goal. Why am I doing this? What do I want to accomplish by doing this analytic rubric? So it should always begin with a goal. Kaya dapat sabi natin, purposeful talaga ang portfolio assessment. There's always a reason why you are doing that, and there's always a reason why you want to include that in the portfolio. Okay? So these are examples of the works of my students. Ito yung mga gawa nila sa akin. Okay, ito po yung mga gawa nila sa akin, Artifact 7. Ito yung artifact itself. Okay. Now, pagkatapos ng goal setting, collect. We have to collect, no? Okay. So, should it be for the whole program, a unit, or a quarter? Now, sa akin, for the whole semester. Okay, sa atin, perhaps, for a quarter. Pero ang suggestion ko, my dearly beloved teachers, huwag niyong pagsabay-sabayin. Kaya na lahat ng sections will submit portfolio at the same time. That will be too much for you to check. So, ang suggestion ko, if you have 4 sections, the first section will submit portfolio first quarter, second quarter, another section for the third quarter, and another section for the fourth quarter. Huwag pagsabay-sabay sapagkat napakahirap. Ito ang problema talaga checking talaga. Okay? So we collect, no? And after we collect, we select. So we collect. Not all collected, we include them in the portfolio. Hindi lahat ng kinolect natin, ilalagay natin sa portfolio. Diba sabi natin, a portfolio is not a placeholder of all. Hindi lahat na kinolect natin ilalagay. Mamimili tayo, no? So we have to select. Now, there are a few things. That is why I even mentioned that sa akin at most is 7. 7 lang ang pinapagawa ko sa mga bata. Now, it can be that selected by teacher, selected by the student himself, selected by the peer, or it can be selected by the parents. Especially for the elementary, it can be that the artifact is selected by the parents. Okay. Next, after select, okay, so we have your sample entries in the portfolio, creative cover, explanation, table of contents, statement of goals, individual group or group outputs, in and out of class activities, composition, written reflections, evaluation letters, and then we have autobiography. So ito mga halimbawa, okay, tungkol sa pabalat, about the cover, I always ask the students to come up with a creative design for the cover. And then when I open the cover, at the back of the cover, there is an explanation. Okay, so concept design tungkol sa pabalat. Okay, ito yung mga halimbawa, no? Cover design. And then you can also include about tungkol sa manunulat, no? Ito ay gawa ng isang Filipino major na isang guro na sa Libmanan. Lahat naman ay humingi ako ng pahintulot na gagamitin ko yung mga ginawa nila sa klase ko. Okay, now pagkatapos po, o-organize na tayo. So after we collect, next we have to organize. Diba? Kaya sabi natin, we teach our students in the portfolio assessment to organize. So, okay, first we set goal, we collect, and not all that are collected, we put in our portfolio. We select, okay? It can be selected by the teacher, it can be selected by the student himself, it can be selected by his friends, classmates, or it can be selected by the parent. And after we select, we need to organize. Now, the organizers can be an envelope, clear book, colored magazine, box. Yung box po, very common sa mga lalaki. At ang yung bag naman, very common sa mga babae. Album, very common din po yun. Kaya tawag natin po to organizers, where they put all the artifacts. Organizers po yun. Okay, so we have here types of portfolio and possible organizer. Paper-based portfolio, clear box. Okay, clear book, box, accordion, expandable envelope. But I discourage my students to use expandable envelopes, which can be bought anywhere in the school supply center. Because the problem is that we are not able to teach them to be creative. So I always ask my students to use recycled materials. I don't like that the portfolios are made out of commercially available material. Okay? So kapag digital portfolio naman, flash drive, CD, DVD, and USB. Suggested from kinder up to higher levels. Okay, e-portfolio, we have web page, learning management system, and Google Drive, and recommended from grade 4 to higher levels. Okay, so these are examples of organizers, a box, okay, and they put the artifacts in a box, and the artifacts are put further in a brown envelope, no? So the brown envelopes consist of the artifacts. They put all together these brown not envelopes, folders, I mean, into a box, and the box becomes the organizer. So ito babae, box again, mahilig sa mga bulaklak, no? And then we have this one, clear book. So ginawa nila to. Okay, this one. Okay, and then we have to reflect. Okay, this is the most important part. Ito ang laging pinag-aabangan ko eh. Okay, so I look so much into the reflections of my students on their works because as we mentioned, reflections deepen the understanding and extend learning ng mga bata. Okay, so dapat may reflections. Tanggalin mo ang reflections sa portfolio, hindi natin matatawag portfolio po yun. Okay, so dapat yun talaga eh. May reflections lagi sa bawat artifacts ng mga bata. Sa bawat artifacts dapat may goal, tapos dapat may reflections. Okay? So these are the ways to reflect sa mga elementary. May best work, may worst work, okay? Mayroong mga drawing. Kung minsan ginagamit sila yung mga stickers. Okay? But of course, in college or in high school, we want them to write diaries. Gusto ko narrative reflections sa college. No? I want them to write in paragraph. Okay, so these are examples of the reflections of my students. Okay, for their artifacts. Ito po yun. Mga reflections. Narrative reflection po. Okay? Okay. Now, sample questions for reflections. Okay, so these are example, okay? Sample questions for students to reflect on their works. Okay, ito po yun. Okay, again, the heart and soul of our portfolio is reflection. Okay? So, and then we evaluate, evaluate natin. So kung maaari po, ang mga artifacts should represent all of these learning targets. Sa akin, ang artifact number 1 ko po, knowledge learning target, I ask them to interview a teacher because I want them to know if teachers are already using new trends in classroom assessment. Pagkatapos, ang artifact 2 po is reasoning naman. Ang artifact number 3, skills. Artifact 4 is product. Artifact 5 is affect. So dapat po varied because we said portfolio assessment collects multiple learning evidences, multiple indicators of students' growth and development. Kaya po kapag lahat mga quiz papers, test papers, we cannot consider it as multiple. Okay? Quizzes, isa lang po yun. Dapat it should be varied. No? Okay. So ito po yung rubric na ginagamit ko sa klase ko kapag nag-check na po ako ng portfolio. Ito po yun. At ang rubrics dapat we have to present to our students and then we allow them to comment. If their suggestions are valid, so we accommodate. One example, when I presented my rubric to them, ang sabi lang, sir, ang taas naman ng creativity because creativity is gender bias. Mas creative ang babae kaysa mga lalaki. So I asked, what is your suggestion? Sir, pwede po bang babaan natin yung percentage, yung point allocation sa creativity? Okay. So we will lower down. Instead of 50, we will make it perhaps only 10. Okay. And once it is already finalized, so comments, if comments are valid, are sound, so we integrate and then we revise and then we use the rubric for scoring. So ito po yung rubrics na ginagamit ko po. Okay? So yung evaluation tools, pwedeng alternate response kapag alternate response, dalawa lang, approve, disapprove, okay? So kapag rating scale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, kapag checklist, meron tayong mga hinahanap sa portfolio. No? So may mga checklist tayong hinahanap. So ito yung mga evaluation tools na pwede natin gamitin sa portfolio assessment. Okay? Now, ito ang possible criteria. Okay? Sa rubrics completeness. Kung minsan kasi, ang portfolio ng mga bata napakagandang tingnan, pero kapag bubuksan mo, I expect them 7, but what is inside is only 3. So, hindi kompleto. So, completeness is also important. Creativity, originality, resourcefulness, reflectiveness, organization, how the artifacts are organized. No? Importante that the student should be taught on how to organize. Visual appeal, accuracy of information. Yun. Diversity of collections, because we define portfolio assessment as gathering of multiple learning evidences. Kaya dapat vary, dapat ang artifacts ng mga bata. Okay, able to address multiple intelligences, quality of product, and evidence of understanding. Okay? So, good practices in portfolio assessment. So, always present the rubric to the learners, and learners participate in the development and refinement of rubric. And we should always allow our students also to select artifacts that they wish to include in their portfolio. And the last K is always conferral. So it's very sad that after our students have worked so much time and resources for the portfolio, after we corrected, after we checked the portfolio, we put the portfolio at isang corner, nilalagay natin. So I think it's a very good practice that we have to exhibit the portfolios of our students. And we have this what called conference. So the conference can be between students and teacher, especially in high school. However, for elementary, perhaps we can even involve the parents in the conference. Now, in my class, since we submit a portfolio a week before the final examination, and so the conference is, I always ask my student to see me as they get their portfolio from my office. And then as we get a portfolio, then we do the conferencing. Okay? So that ends my presentation for today. That ends my presentation. So I am ready for Q&A.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Popoy, sa napakagandang talakayan na ating narinig. Ako, ang isa sa tumatak sa akin ay yung pagkakaroon natin at pagsisiguro na ang katanungan ay maiuugnay sa totoong buhay at magagamit talaga ng mga mag-aaral po natin. Maraming salamat po. Sa palagay ko po, mayroon po bang mga nais magbigay ng katanungan kay Sir Popoy? Maaari po bang magtaas ng kamay o ayan, si Ma'am Mercedes Manese.
Thank you po.
Ma'am Mercedes, meron po ba kayong katanungan para kay Sir Popoy?
Opo, thank you po. Good morning po sa lahat. Sir, congratulations po. Napakahusay niyo pong mag-deliver nitong assessment. Sobra po akong na-enlighten talaga doon sa mga topic niyo. Talaga siya yung pinakinggan ko from the start. So, ang tanong ko lang po kasi lalo ngayon, nag-face-to-face na tayo at pinagagawa na ng mga diagnostic test, summative test, isa po doon sa tanong ko kasi yung pinagagawa po sa amin sa matching, sa multiple choice po, sir, po yung halimbawa po doon sa pagpipilian, di ba po, letter A, B, C, D, halimbawa po ay alamat, sanaysay, metodolohiya. So, ang inaano po ay dapat daw ay mauna yung A, halimbawa po ay alamat, mauna daw yung letter M sa S, metodolohiya, sanaysay, gano'n. So, ano po ba yun, sir?
Nabanggit ko yun, ma'am, lagi tinatanong sa akin. Sa akin, hindi mortal sin sa akin kasi yun. Kasi yung suggestion kasi, the option should be arranged logically. If not logically, alphabetically. Now, kapag numbers naman po in ascending or descending order, kapag dates po, regardless of the month, it should be according to the year. Pero sa akin po kasi, if we observe that, and by observing that, hindi yung equal yung distribution ng tamang sagot. Diba sabi natin, kung maaari, we have 40 items, maaari ba may 10 na items, ang sagot ay A, may 10 items na ang sagot B, may 10 items na letter C, may 10 items na letter D. If not equal, at least it should be equitable. Now, lalo na po kapag meron tayo, we follow that, tapos nagkaroon ng pattern. Sa akin, forgivable po sa akin yun. Sa akin kasi hindi masyado akong stricto doon sa arrangement of options alphabetically. Whenever possible, okay, fine with me. No? So, ganun din ako comment din ako sa mga whenever possible lang. Kasi whenever possible. Kasi kung minsan we are so much into that rule. That will also lead to pattern. It will also lead to pattern of answer. And it may also lead that the distribution of the correct answer is not equally or equitably distributed to the four options.
Okay.
Yun po, ma'am.
Thank you,
po.
sir. Sir, isa pa.
Okay, ma'am. From what school ka po, ma'am?
Division ng Laguna ako, sir.
Laguna si ma'am.
Taga rito po ako sa Los Baños. Los Baños National High School,
Ah,
sir.
wow. Sige po. Okay,
Yan,
ma'am.
sir. Pwede
Pumunta
po
ko doon
bang
sa Santa Rosa. Doon sa
okay.
mga madre, doon, Don Bosco School. Di ba? Sa Santa Rosa. So, they invited me to give the same topic, ano? Sige, ano pa po yun, ma'am?
Pwede po bang makahingi ng inyong PowerPoint presentation?
Actually, makulit talaga si Dr. Basil. Talagang laging nagpapaalala sa akin. Sabi ko, Basil, pwede ba? Pagkatapos na lang kasi ang dami mga revisions, no? Okay, so marami po kasi kung tinanggal. Kung gusto niyo po yung buong buo talaga, ibibigay ko yung mga buong buo talaga. May mga tinanggal po ako kasi yung oras kasi kulang eh. Okay, yung bigay po ako sa CHED, yung mga para sa colleges of education, bigay po ako ng summer, 3 days pa ako talaga dito. 3 days sa trimodal assessment. So ngayon, ginawa natin 4 na oras lamang. Kaya ang dami kong tinanggal. Po. So anong gusto nyo? Yung full o yung edited na?
Yung edited na po, sir.
Sige, edited. So ibibigay ko pagkatapos.
Oo, napaka-interesting po kasi about portfolio assessment. At talaga pong nalinawan ako, even yung umpisa nyo pa lang, between the written and the performance test. Thank you so much, sir.
Lalong-lalo na ang mga teachers, ang akala nila ang problem solving, laging performance. Sabi ko hindi. Okay, when the problem solving requires only one solution and leads to one correct answer, bakit performance yun? So written yun eh. O, kaya nga dapat i-correct din natin ang definition ng depth and order number 8 kasi sabi doon, written output should be under written. Sabi ko hindi. Kasi may mga written na performance. Oh, di ba? Term paper is performance. Hindi yung written eh. Actually po, bago tayo nagkaroon ng pandemya, kinausap ko si Yusek Dan San Antonio. Classmate ko po siya noon at kaibigan ko. At minungkahi ko talaga kay Dan San Antonio na dapat ang gamitin natin portfolio assessment, lalo na distance education. Kasi mahirap kasi kapag written test, kapag distance education. Oo. So ito yung mga alternative na gagamitin natin. Okay, saka yung mga integrative assessment. Diba, gumagamit tayo integrative assessment, 4 lamang na learning performance task in 1 quarter. But the performance test comes from different learning competencies. Yung tatawag nating integrative assessment po. Sige ma'am, nice seeing you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Maraming salamat, Ma'am Mercedes. Nawa ay nasagot ni Sir Popoy ang iyong katanungan. At sir, napakarami kasi nanghihingi sa chat box ng PowerPoint at alam ko nasagot na rin yan. Kaya yung pong sa mga nangungulit sa PowerPoint ni Sir Popoy na napakaganda at napakamakabuluhan, hintayin niyo lamang po at i-edit lang po ni Sir Popoy para po maibahagi rin naman sa atin. Mayroon pa po bang...
Gusto kong linawin yung portfolio assessment kasi eh. Kasi ito napapansin yung portfolio assessment, yung pinapagawa natin compilation of works eh. Hindi talaga portfolio assessment kasi may process dapat i-observe natin. Lalo na yung reflection sa kayong goal setting. At hindi pwedeng lahat ng gustong ilagay ng mga bata, pwedeng ilagay. Hindi pwede. Yung term na ginamit ko kanina, it's not a placeholder of all, nor a random. Kaya sabi nga, to make portfolio assessment very educational, the teacher should be able to guide the students in the selection. And we have to explain to our students why it should be included. No? So, yun napapansin ko kasi lahat mga papel, ang daming mga quiz papers, mga test papers na nilalagay sa portfolio. Ideally, 7 lang po, 7 lang sa akin. And that is what I require my student to submit, 7 artifacts, but the 2 out of the 7 artifacts, pinili ng mga mag-aaral. Sapagkat sa portfolio assessment, dapat din talaga bigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga mag-aaral na mamili. Mamili. Kanina itong portfolio hindi atin itong portfolio. Okay. Ako matagal ako nagamit ng portfolio. I think I started using portfolio assessment 2004 pa eh. Yun ang problema. Yung pag-check talaga, ang hirap talaga. Ang hirap. Lalo na kapag yung mga bata, yung pag-present ang mga artifacts, yung naka-scroll, parang diploma, diba? Itatanggalin natin yung ribbon, tapos babasahin natin, tapos i-scroll naman natin.
Ibabalik po ulit.
Talagang ayaw ko talaga. Saka yung silver dust, kasi kapag nagbabasa ako, yung silver dust, napunta sa aking mukha. Ayaw ko talaga
Yung glitters yan, di ba, sir?
Yung glitters. Dapat alam, yung guidelines dapat sabihin natin sa mga bata, ano ang mga hindi pwede, ano ang pwede. No?
Opo,
Okay,
opo.
yun ang portfolio. At maganda pa sa portfolio assessment, nakikilala natin mga mag-aaral. Yung napakaganda sa portfolio assessment,
Opo, opo.
mas maigi at talaga na nakikilala natin ang mga bata. Sa
Opo.
reflection pa nila, saka sa design. Makikita mo, sa estudyante, nagbigay sa akin ng portfolio. Sa bawat pahina ng portfolio, lagi may mga musical instrument. So tinanong ko sa kanya, are you inclined into music? Do you love music? Yes po sir, gusto ko talaga. Kaya naman pala sa portfolio mo, yung design mo, ganun.
Lumalabas, ano po?
Lumalabas talaga, lumalabas.
Opo.
Lumalabas.
Nakakatuwa ano sir na nakakatuwa na ang ating talakayan ay hindi lamang pagsusuri ng mga mag-aaral kung hindi ang nakuha ko dito yung pagbuo natin ng relasyon sa kanila gamit ang mga portfolio, di po ba? At
Pero
performance.
ano din yun, ano, yung ethical, importante yung ethical, ano? So, yung
Opo.
the principles of the need to know and the principle
Opo.
of the no harm. So,
Opo.
baguhin natin yung pagsasauli ng mga papel sa mga bata, no? Hindi na kailangan malaman pa ng iba yung score ng ibang estudyante. So,
Opo.
okay, you can return the papers either alphabet. Sa akin kasi, kapag nag-check ko ng papel, laging unang sasabihin ko sa student assistant, could you please arrange the papers alphabetically? And after the papers are alphabetized, I start checking. Now, ang maganda kasi kapag ang papers alphabetized, it will also help us in the recording. Diba? Ang bilis mag-record tayo ng scores. And then
Tama.
kay classroom management maganda rin kasi pag sa uli ng papel, alam kung sino ang susunod na papel, no? Kanino yun eh. So, yun maganda. Okay, maganda.
Apo. Salamat Sir Popoy, napakamakabuluhan ng iyong sagot at napakaraming karunungan ano. Mula sa ayan kay Ma'am Mercedes Manese mula sa Katanungan mula sa Laguna, meron bang mga ibang mga kaguruan natin na narito na nais pang magtanong kay Sir Popoy? Meron po bang gustong magtanong? Sa chat box ba meron pong gustong magtanong? Ayan. Marami lang puro Sir Popoy na ayan, maraming salamat po sir, napakahusay. Ayan, napakamakabuluhang pagbabahagi niyo po. Binabasa ko lang po yung ibang mga ayan at napakarami pong mga nagpapaabot ng pasasalamat nila sir. At sa pagkakataon naman na ito po, Sir Popoy ay nais naming i-present po sa inyo ang katibayan ng pagpapahalaga, kagawaran ng edukasyon, Professional Regulation Commission, samahan ng mga guro sa intelektualisasyon ng Pilipino, ipinagkakaloob ang katibayan ng pagpapahalaga kay Dr. Arnulfo Aaron R. Reganip sa kanyang pagbabahagi ng kahusayan at kadalughasaan sa 4 na araw ng ikapitong pandaigdigang panayampalihan sa Pilipinong may temang mga teorya at praktika ng kahusayan at validasyon sa pagtuturo, pagkatuto at pagtatayang online at modular mulang elementarya hanggang tersyarya at lagpas pa. Kinanap ito sa ika-27 hanggang ika-30 ng Agosto 2022 sa lungsod Naga. May 15 CPD puntos mula sa PRC, PTR 2021-3491193, pinirmahan ng inyong pong lingkod bilang isa sa mga direktor, Jessie Delara, Rodel Maquila, Direktor, Jessica May Reyes, Direktor, Basil Victoria, Direktor, at ng ating tagapangulo ng SAGIP, si Ma'am Melinda R. Cardano. Ayan po. Pasalubungan po natin ang masigabong palakpakan si Sir Popoy. Maraming salamat Sir Popoy sa napakabuluhan na umagang ito. Maaari po ba tayo mag-request ng picture po? Yung pong mga nasa Zoom pa po, mga kaguruan, maaari po ba kayo magbukas ng inyong camera para magkaroon tayo ng souvenir na picture kasama si Sir Popoy, ang napakahusay na nagbigay sa atin ng kaalaman at nagbahagi ng kanyang karunungan tungkol sa validasyon. 6 na frame po tayo. Marami-rami po tayo guys, Sir Popoy. Kaya manatili po tayong nakangiti habang ini-screenshot po. Sino po ang mag-screenshot? Okay. Bibilang po ako ng 1, 2, 3 para sa unang frame. Okay. Sa susunod na frame, ngumiti po tayo. 1, 2, 3. Sa ikatlong frame po, 1,
Wa-
2, 3. At okay na po pala dahil yung sa mga sumunod na frame po ay wala na pong nakabukas na camera. Maraming salamat po. Sir Popoy, meron ka bang huling salita na nais ibahagi sa kanila bago natin tuluyang tapusin ang ating session sa umagang ito? Huling
Oh.
mga tips.
Yung tips sa akin, ano? Okay. So, ang tinatanong lagi, ano ba ang ano? Okay. Katatapos pa lang namin ng National Conference ng Education Measurement and Evaluation. Yung kay laging tanong ng mga participants, among the three, ano ba ang pinaka magaling? Okay, which is the best assessment method? Ang sagot po doon ay it depends on the learning competencies that we want to assess. So we cannot say that written test is not good compared to performance task, compared to portfolio assessment. Depende rin po kasi sa learning competencies that we want to assess. Yun po yun eh. Now, babalikan natin, yung kanina, yung pinaka-umpisa kong sinabi sa inyo, what gets assessed is what gets learned. So anything that we include in our assessment are those that our students learn. And those that are not included in our assessment are those that are not learned by our students. And so if we strongly believe that these are very important for our students to learn, then it should always be included in our assessment. So yun lang tandaan po natin. Okay, thank
Muli,
you.
maraming salamat, Sir Popoy. Salubungan natin mas kapang palakpakan. Maraming salamat po. Naging napakamakabuluhan po ng aming umaga dahil po sa inyong mga pagbabahagi. Ayan po.
Okay, sige. Bye-bye.
Maraming salamat, Sir Popoy. Maraming salamat po.
Bye.
At para po doon sa ating mga kaguruan, tayo po ay magkakaroon ng pananghalian at pagbabalik po tayo sa ganap na itaisa ng hapon at para naman po sa isang mas makabuluhan rin na pagtatalakay ng ating estado ng Araling Pilipino. Inaanyayahan namin kayo na hangga't maaari po ay dumalo sa ganap na sa saktong oras dahil nagbubukas po ang ating session ng saktong oras. Yan po ang ating tatak bilang samahan at yan po ang ating tatak bilang sa mga seminar po natin. Tayo po ay nagsisimula ng saktong oras at nagtatapos din ng saktong oras. Muli, mag-enjoy po kayo sa inyong pananghalian at medyo maaga lang po tayo ngayong natapos para sa lunch break po natin. Pero magkita-kita po tayo ulit mamayang hapon po. Maraming salamat po.